How is everybody out there doing? Welcome in. Welcome in. Quiet day in sports, wouldn't you say? It was quiet until it wasn't. Some seismic activity in the association that we will look at. And some contracts being signed in the NFL. Let's get our socials in order. Yes, indeed. But I hope everybody's Thursday was good. We are in prime Cape Cod summer mode. Humidity is through the roof. ACs are being utilized. Don't want to max them out. Q3 Media, what is up? Appreciate you. Yeah, man. Q3 Media and that Sports Cheetah. Good programming. Good content. Got to get our gaming takes in order. Most certainly incorporate that. Got a couple friends that are rather shrewd and perceptive in that space, right? Even though we know that casino, right? They say Father Time is undefeated. Casino is right up there in terms of the winning streak and being undefeated. So, right? But gaming and you know what the lines are, what the odds are. There's been some talk about the kid from Cleveland, right? Speculation about where he's going to go and those odds. But we will incorporate all of that. So we're good, folks, across the board. Let's get our volume in order. I know the volume has been back and forth. Just about right. And let's get it. Let's get it. Okay? The nighttime is the right time. There's no time like the present. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Welcome to SandCity Sports, folks. To the business. I am your host. That takes I am Come on back. Let's get some more of that intro. Let's get some more of Wonder Years. Hey, hey. That $1 million. He said I'm heading back to the motherland. Heading back to the Pacific Northwest. I'm gonna show you what it is to be loyal to the soil. Scratching your heads. Right? But that quietness is kept. So the real moves, the real deals, they happen in silence. And so, of course, we're going to be starting with Dame Dollar heading back to the Portland Trailblazers. That's leading. You know, there's some movement that happened. There's a reconciliation, if you will, that took place in Pittsburgh. Mr. TJ Watt, highest paid non-quarterback, securing a bag that he most certainly deserves. Jets have been breaking bread, okay, solidifying their roster. But you know it, and I know it as we get going on another episode of SandCity Sports on this Thursday. Cape Cod, summertime, nighttime is the right time. Beautiful weather, hot, humid, muggy. Take it all in. Enjoy every last millisecond of this good. Now, again, you need to get the AC. Go ahead and get that good AC, folks. I had to get, you know what I mean? Went over, I had to stop by Job Lot. You know, your boy's a discount shopper. Shout out to Job Lot. Went over to Trader Joe's, get my organic, tasty, reasonably priced food. So point of fact is, I'm enjoying all that AC. I go for the product, but I also go for the free AC. So right now, summertime, I'm hoping everybody gets some of that AC. You go to the grocery store, you hanging out in the, you know, in the frozen food section for a little bit longer. Get some of that good cold, right? You got to do all those type of things, but at the same time, you can't help but enjoy it and make the most. Because I don't know about y'all, but in the Northeast, winter is coming. Winter is coming. But for right now, hey, it's summertime and the living is good. What is up, Chris? Appreciate you. Most definitely. Yes. Dame Dollar, that's where we are starting. We might have to conclude there because this was unexpected, right? This was not. This was that long shot. Speaking of placing down a few dollars, a few pesos, okay, a few euros, a few shekels, right? We didn't have this as a leading narrative, but again, them real moves happen in silence. So let's break this down. Okay, get this up. Boop, boop. Dame Dollar to the Blazers. And I got to say, you know, a lot of right, this is all the rage. But for me, just on the face of it, win-win. All right. Now, the folks in Boston, okay, going to feel differently. Fortunately, there's a backup plan with Anthony Simons, who is coming from Portland and is quite serviceable in and of himself. A new face that the Celtics are going to have to kind of get used to, but he's certainly younger and he's healthy. So that can work. The best situation for Boston was to leave well enough alone. And they should have kept Jrue Holiday and the Big Four, as I've said, and will continue to say again and again and again and again. They are weaker. Okay. And there's no two ways about it without a tried and true champion in Mr. Jrue Holiday, who currently is also on the roster for the Portland Trail Blazers, which is a big part of the reason I'm in favor of this deal. Because now if I'm Portland, and I know you have to get not just the X's and O's. The X's and O's shouldn't be an issue because Jrue Holiday is not a me guy, he's a we guy, which people seem to forget is a skill. Okay? That's the conversation that's taking place right now in the world of sports. It's a beautiful thing. The Stars of Tomorrow are balling out down at Peach Jam in South Carolina. Okay, Mr. Tynan Stokes, who you're going to be hearing about, rising senior. Can he fill the shoes of a one Mr. A.J. DeBansa, who he played with on the Oakland Soldiers, who took an L, folks. They took an L to Expressions Elite at a Beantown. Shout out to Expressions Elite. You're going to see it on the screen when we get to Slice of Life. Big time win for the local hometown program, taking down the Oakland Soldiers, who went to the Peach Jam Championship last year with Mr. A.J. DeBansa and Tynan Stokes. That's a big time win. What does that have to do with Dame Dollar? All right, the preps, the young Lions, the young Bulls are finding out it takes a village. What that mean? Young Bulls are finding out you gotta be a we guy before you're a me guy if you're gonna play winning basketball. So what does that have to do with Dame Dollar is Portland has that cornerstone. I said what I said. Cornerstone in Jrue Holiday. Now, some things have to be worked out financially wise to see if you can possibly keep Jrue and pair him with Dame to give you that power backcourt. Okay? I know they got Scoot Henderson coming up through the ranks. Scoot has been taking his sweet time. Scoot's been taking his sweet time. All right? And time is running out. Another positive component of this deal. Clearly, Dame is going to be sidelined for the majority, if not the entirety, of this year. I hope he comes back down the stretch. I know it's an Achilles, and I hope he's able to come back down the stretch. And Portland can put themselves in a position as they had a strong second half. And in my mind, less is more with Portland. This Donovan Clingan. Hope I pronounced the last name correctly. And please correct me if I'm wrong. The Pride, he's from Connecticut. Played for the Spartans, which is a non-sneaker team that competes here in the Commonwealth on the grassroots circuit. The Spartans don't have to be on a sneaker team to get through to the high major level. And you saw he took that work ethic, that talent over to UConn. Came up off the bench for the first championship. Forget the center, that they had at that particular point in time. Forget the center. But then balled out, as UConn went back to back and took Florida to the, could have been the trifecta. That was quite a game against Florida, who ended up breaking through and winning the whole thing, even though Duke was the best team in the tournament. But Portland has young Lions that are going to come in and are going to handle business. I look at Clingan, young Donovan. I see a lot of Zubac in him. I see a lot of Ibaka. Starting center, serviceable center. Can be a starter on a contending team. Protect the basket. Willing passer. He's going to rebound. He can step out and shoot the three ball. And so Ayton moves out, and now he's ready to come in and step to the forefront. You don't take somebody number 3 overall and not have them in your plans going forward. They still have Grant, who's veteran guy, dependable guy. Danny Avdija. Check that box. Shaedon Sharpe is the question mark. Because really, it should be Shaedon at the 3. It's time for Mr. Sharpe to step to the forefront. Right? Did the year at Kentucky, the primer year where he didn't even play and was going to go back to Kentucky. And should Cal have played him? Should Cal not have played him? There was a lot of controversy about that. Should we have just rolled him out there, while he's in the building? Or do we wait? He says he's coming back, but then he didn't come back and people were upset. The upsetting thing right now is, can Mr. Shaedon Sharpe, along with Mr. Scoot Henderson, take this lightning in a bottle and move their careers and their team forward? Because for all the talk about what Portland was doing second half of the season, the defensive efficiency rating, they were a bottom dweller. Not even in the conversation for the play-in. So a lot of all that learning the fly stuff that was out there, quote unquote, positive, alleged momentum. In terms of wins and loss, you're getting the brakes beat off you in the Western Conference every single night. And that conference is only getting better, similar to the A.F.C. in football. Steelers reloading. Baltimore adding this piece, that piece, the third. Patty Mahomes ain't gone nowhere. Patriots trying to get their act together. Dolphins trying to sustain and maintain. Jacksonville trying to maximize Trevor Lawrence. The rich get richer. Metaphorically, actually, across the board. So again, for Portland, and I rock with Chauncey Billups. I see what they've done in terms of their lineup, in terms of drafting, in terms of Cronin securing a bag for Dame Lillard, now ending up getting Dame Lillard back. What are we doing here? This is Dave Portnoy type. This is Barstool Sports type stuff that we're talking about right now. You sell your company for $500 million. You buy the richest house on Nantucket, which is the land of the super rich in and of itself. Just a kid from Squamscott, North Shore. You're dropping your R's. You're parking your cars. Right? Shout out to The Departed. Dropping your R's and you're hanging out in the big bad Southie projects. Huh? Mr. Portnoy? Do I agree with all his takes? Absolutely not. Specifically to women's sports. W.N.B.A. and college. He had some things he said that was out of line. Vis-a-vis the whole Caitlin Clark, Angel Reed dichotomy. Which is fine, by the way. Let's remind ourselves that's what sports is all about. Everyone doesn't have to be kumbaya all the time. But we need to be respectful of our young queens. We need to be respectful of our young queens. Let me say that again. We're going to have to talk about what Shaquille O'Neal had to say, and he's 1,000% right as far as I'm concerned. In terms of some of the disrespectful things that's been said about our wonderful young stars coming up through the ranks of women's basketball. You know what I mean? The older folks not setting the example for the younger folks. Craziness. Put myself right in that conversation. You get older, you have some titles here and there, and you feel good. You can, which is wild because, you're the same person. Okay, but when you get these titles, you just have to do more than what you did before. It's nice to have them. It's nice to have goals and accomplish them, but given and required, folks. The more that you're giving, the more that, hey, where it at? That's life. Okay? So back to the point that I was making, that we are coming all the way back to Dame, and we are coming back to how I feel about this team. But, I tip my hat to the Diesel in terms of how he interjected himself, and necessarily so, in a situation that's going on with our outstanding young, up-and-coming women's basketball players in the W.N.B.A. There's nothing wrong with Bird and Magic. There's nothing wrong with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. But people, that's why I'm thrilled to have this platform, SandCity Sports, whoever's checking in, whoever's not checking in. I know, hey, it's a bold new world we're living in. We can't even talk about the AI, but in terms of streaming, we got Nightcap going on right now. Knicks Fan TV is in the building. CP the franchise, shout out, salute. Uncle Shay and Ocho, they back, getting ready to dive into some football. So who knows what channel you're tuning into, this channel, that channel, the third channel. Okay, respect and appreciate it all. But when people can't understand within this conversation, back to SandCity Sports and why I'm thrilled to have it, sports and current events news stories that you need to know. People taking some of the outlandishness from the political side, and it's all these things are intersectional, I think is a word that they use. Sports, politics, culture, entertainment, philosophy. This is humanity. This is the human experience, right? Right, we experienced things in different. Okay, so I'm in this mode now. But in terms of things from one side come into the other, things from the other come into the one side. And before I get back to Portland, all I'm saying is some of the political vitriol. The vitriol. I don't know if it's political or it's just vitriol. There's plenty of madness in sports vis-a-vis fanatics. It's disappointing. And again, I'm talking about the comments that were made about our young queens in the W.N.B.A. It's disappointing. But then at the same time, it's also, revealing. Speaking of telling on yourself, folks, a couple people told on themselves, and you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't know if I have that clip. You don't like to talk out of school or put people out there, but I mean, viral clip of some folks at a concert just having a good old time that told on themselves, right? Which is a clear example of karma for you, for me, for anybody. All right. I'm not talking about any, hey, karma will come get me just as fast as they come get you and everybody else. But that viral clip is just so truthful, it hurts almost. In terms of, I say again, karma. So, hey, my college professor used to say, but for the grace of God, there go I. So you don't wish bad on anybody. You kind of empathize, as much as possible with people, that are going through situations. Sometimes you put yourself in situations and you got to go through it. But you certainly don't ever want to rain down on somebody because, again, that karma, what goes around, it's coming around. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So that was my segue. We might get into that W.N.B.A storyline. And I'm not really too interested in the raining on people's parade in terms of people adding themselves at concerts. So I don't know if I'm going to talk too deep into that. But back to the Portland Trailblazers and my assessment of them and why I have to trust but verify. Meaning, I see what Ime Udoka did with Houston in a very short period of time. Got Houston all the way to the top of that very competitive Western Conference with a roster full of young lions. And now he has a general with the 4 stars to come in and lead them young bulls. Okay. So Houston, for me, odds-on favorite for the chip. Odds-on favorite for the chip, I got the Houston Rockets. Now, even with Durant, had Boston not been about some foolishness, I would have still had them right at the tippity top. Yes, I know Tatum is injured. Yes, it's going to come back, but it's going to take him some time to get to where he needs to be. I understand that. But the Boston Celtics as constituted in the best of all possible worlds. I know some people had to, and you could keep everybody. Maybe you could have. Maybe you could have just signed shorter term deals and been mindful of the second apron. But Chris, some real, that real life stuff. It's tough. It's tough, but at the same time, you know what I mean? It's folks that get, and the people that are affected by those type of things, that's some real. You're just trying to be a good person and be committed and do your best. You're a working class hero out there. Everybody's stretched thin, and then you have people within your circle that you trust, that you're trying to build with. All right, amongst the just day-to-day grind and the struggle, right? You're going to take the hit from the bill collectors over here. I'm taking a hit from the bill collectors over there. I'm taking a hit from the boss. All right. You got responsibilities that you're trying to juggle and just do your best. You make mistakes, but you get older, people don't, right? They don't always give you the benefit of doubt. Sometimes we don't give ourselves the benefit of doubt. We beat ourselves up. And then in the midst of all that, when somebody in your circle of trust, as my man, DeMario from prep school used to say, shout out to Percy Julian High School in Chicago. I went to prep school with people from, best ball players from across the country. We had Chicago, my roommate. We had Detroit downstairs. We had VA around the corner. We had Africa, and you know what I mean, down the way. Prep school times was beautiful. You know what I mean? But my man Mario used to say, hey, so-and-so tricked off. So-and-so tricked off on something. They tricked off on him. That's Chicago parlance. That's not me. That's Chicago. They say so-and-so tricked off. And it's but at the same time, for me at least, I want to know. And then, hey, it's time to call Saul. It's time to call that Goodman. First I know, then I go. Better call Saul. Hey, I got a situation. Got a situation. We gotta, I can't rock with people no more that's, they caught him at the game. Hey, you know what I mean? You made your choice, but we not, yeah. You gonna have to get up out of here. You know what I mean? Got to go. Got to go. But hey, so once again, tough situation. Again, for those that were offended and treated inappropriately, and you just wish them the best and hope that they can move on, move away from what they got to move away from, and kind of go forward. So appreciate that point, Chris. But yes, folks, back to this situation with Portland and Dame Dollar. I haven't seen what I'm looking for what I'm seeing in Houston. Houston, I see a general leading the troops, and that's nothing against the 1-to-1 in terms of Chauncey versus Ime Udoka, right? Chauncey, I'm pulling for him as a coach. I don't know if he certainly doesn't come up from the Popovich tree, and talked about it last episode in terms of the journey that we have to go to get to where we want to get to. And there's times Steve Harvey spoke very powerfully, and I've heard him tell that story before, and it just always resonates with me about, $25 jokes. And he's telling these $25 jokes for 1 year. And he's telling these $25 jokes for 2 years. He's telling these $25 jokes for 3 years. Same jokes, and he says, when is the breakthrough? I know I got the talent. I know I can shine. I've been doing, I crossed the T's. I dotted the I's. I checked the boxes. When am I going to get my opportunity? And you get frustrated. You get discouraged. And then Steve Harvey says he had the breakthrough. He was on Showtime on the Apollo. We've been on TV ever since, telling them same $25 jokes. Now every appearance, 6 figures. You know it. You need me to come do the private party? I need that $250 minimum. That's thousands. And you're paying for my transportation and the airfare. Shout out to Rob Parker. Shout out to the Odd Couple. Everything that I do on this trip, I'm writing it all off. That's all write-offs. So we going to that good restaurant, getting that steak. Write it on off. We getting that steak. Okay, give me that potato salad. Give me the mashed potatoes. We writing business related expense. Give me all of that, and you getting your tip too. Come on now. We doing well and we doing good right now. But Steve Harvey says he does those events. He might be on the Cape. He might be down in Chatham right now. If I didn't know better. Bruno Mars was at the Squire a couple of years back. Had to give him 10, 5, 6, 7 millies to do the in person, whatever the case may be. Right? And they said we're getting mad. No, we need a Bruno Mars. You mean a cover band? No, we need the actual person. Send him to Chatham. Well, it's gonna cost? Send him down. That's what you know what I mean. Your son or daughter's getting married. Folks, they said we'll spare no expense. Okay, I need Bruno, or I need The Weeknd, or I need whoever it is, the pop sensation. Send him down. A couple years ago, 50 Cent was over we see it for Best Buddies. He was around the way in Centerville or Hyannisport for Best Buddies. So yeah, those appearances, they're not free. 6 figures, all expense, private jet, the whole 9 yards. Telling the same $25 jokes that he was telling when he was on the road, flat broke. Right? So it's a process that's inspiring for me. You see it play out. What does this have to do with Portland Trailblazers? Okay? Ime Udoka, I can, and I was following, very promising coach. Thought he was up, should have got could have had the Nets starting head coaching job. He was around interviewing in that coaching cycle, but it went to Steve Nash because, we don't, again, certain things were said about not needing a coach. They could have had Kenny Atkinson as a coach. Just continue to put that out there. Had they wanted to come up under some real leadership and win. But, the whole perspective of, prima donna, NIL, max contract, a different kind of max contract than some of the greatest of all time that we discussed, i.e. Tim Duncan, all-time great, who allows Popovich to coach him, who comes up under the leadership. Talk about Larry Bird, running the stairs after practice, hours upon hours for greatness. So if the best player by far is doing this, how are you going to tell me no? How you going to be a 6th or 7th man and come out here, puff your chest up talking about no? If we got all-time greatness, that's at that level, and you fringe player want to have an attitude. Okay? You know, what do they say in The Departed? Okay? World needs plenty of bartenders. What did Mike Shanahan say to talking to Uncle Shay, who's on right now? Shout out to Nightcap. He said, you can't beat single coverage. You're going to be selling insurance or coaching. You can't beat man coverage. All right, take out a clipboard or get that insurance. Get into that insurance game. I heard it's popping. You ain't playing professional football for the Denver Broncos if you can't beat man coverage. I don't know what to tell you. No two ways about that. None. All right? So that's that tough talk that we need, frankly. It's hard sometimes, particularly, your family, because they've been saying it your whole life. So sometimes you can't hear the same thing from the same person. You step away, but then a different person says essentially the same thing. And you're like, you right. You right. You know what I mean? I got to do X, Y, you right. Okay. I got to step my game up. That's. So what is back to M.A., right? M.A. had to wait his turn. That Brooklyn Nets team, the first year, particularly when KD had his, big toe on the line, had M.A. to run the defense, had D'Antoni to run the offense, had Jacques Vaughn there for good measure. That's 3 head coaches. And the first time de facto head coach in Steve Nash. So M.A., right? And then Brad Stevens decided it was time to move up into the front office, and they bring M.A. in. Okay. And they're in the finals competing for championships. Things that happen that shouldn't have happened off the court. Very unfortunate. But M.A. took that same system, those same characteristics, right? He developed some better coping skills, right? Developed some better coping skills. We'll get to something. I think I have it clipped on Slice of Life. Just a quick aside. Looking at, there's going to be a lot of asides. So let me know how you feel, folks. Let me just go around the world, see what's going on. Thursday night, summertime, right time. SandCity Sports. We're in the building. I appreciate James, my man from the Cape Cod Media Center. Appreciate it. I got to get my episodes taken care of. Send them over, right? This is the production side. So this is the energy and the joy and the enthusiasm. But you got to take care of the pre-production and you got to do post-production. So I got to make sure I get these episodes sent out, clipped up, how they should be in post. Have to do that. But yeah, the quick aside was, and end of the show, Slice of Life. It was looking at the royal family, and they're just, shout out to The Crown, by the way, on Netflix. The Crown was solid, good series. And how all of the formality and the butlers and, the chauffeurs, that's just their life. Gosford Park is an older film, but really well done. Looks at this, the landed gentry, the nobility, they're just the 1%, as we would call them, that just have so much money that, because, right? Who needs somebody to squeeze the toothpaste out of the tooth? Who needs somebody to do that? Frankly, you'd be, but folks have so much money, and there's other ways that you can invest it rather than having people to work with. I mean, sometimes it's good to have people, help you out with the laundry and cleaning, all the rest of that stuff. But then there's extreme examples, which the royal family are. And it just talks about how, one of the points that he made is, they've always lived like this. So, they're not, in the instance of the royal family and the hyper rich, this has literally been their entire life. There's no pull yourself up by your bootstraps. for this class of society. Now, shout out to 90s classic indie films. I'm talking about Gattaca with Ethan Hawke and Jude Law. Okay, folks in that realm. I might have to get Gattaca for you up on the screen. I know sometimes people don't, the algorithms don't like this, but we might have to get it up there for you on the screen if I can find that clip. It's just a number of notable lines. There's a number of notable lines in the film. I'll have to come back to be able to But by the way, check out Gattaca. Oh boy. Check out Gattaca. Good film. It's a good film. Just remembering back to when I was in college. Some folks wanted to see it, and I was in a bad mood. I should have just let people see the movie. That was not a good way of handling that situation. In retrospect, you can see that, but at the time, you're kind of in your feelings, yada, yada, yada. But the point here, the connecting point, can't get the clip from Gattaca, is, they say, this individual, it's a upward mobility story. I'm not going to tell you, kind of sci-fi background. One, has, the other has not. But he noted the one that had the limitations, economic and otherwise, versus the one that had the privilege. He said the gentleman with privilege suffered under a different burden. He suffered under a different burden, the burden of perfection. The burden of perfection. Will Chamberlain's book. Nobody roots for Goliath. Okay? So when you have, this is the plight of your professional athletes, young and wealthy, for a time, and people just aren't as inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt, and you're expected to perform at a certain level irregardless. Suffered under a different burden, the burden of perfection. All the way back to M.A. and the British royal family and people that have people that just take care of them and do all the rest of these things. That's my reservation with M.A. in terms of how it went downhill in Boston. He did not, right? Somebody that had to pull themselves up to get to where they are at should be mindful of that journey when they have success. That's what I come back to with M.A. Udoka. Okay? What happened, it's certainly, if not illegal in its nature, was inappropriate, possibly unethical. I don't know. Okay? I do know that, as everybody knows, they caused a parting of the ways with M.A. and the Celtics. And an exodus on the coaching staff, which, it's going to have a big impact, and it did have a big impact. Now, Celtics rebounded. M.A.'s rebounded. Everyone's moving forward. But you come back to, did we even need to go through all of this in the first place? Because someone that comes from humble beginnings and then achieves success, quote unquote, should remember where they come from. Does it always happen? No. Okay. Talk about being careful what you wish for, because you might get it. Another line I borrowed from Unc over there on Nightcap. And this is a Shannon Sharp-ism. That money makes you more of what you already are. Money only makes you more of what you already are. You get the money and you start to move a certain way. That's always been there. It's always been latent. You just haven't had the means to do it. Now you do. Okay. And so sometimes having less might be in your best interest. My best interest, whoever's best interest. Let's come all the way back to Portland, folks. I need to see it. I need to see this team get off to a fast start. Yes, Dame's not going to be there. It's a cultural boost. It's a nice, coming back. He can be there, be in the organization. He can help these young guys, so on and forth. I need to see some wins. If I see 2-9, 5-15, I don't want to hear about potential and Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson and Donovan, Clennigan from UConn. I don't want to hear none of that. Y'all ain't showed me nothing, as Curtis said. Shout out to Hoop Dreams. Curtis is talking about young Will. He ain't shown me nothing. Right? Speaking of being hard on folks. And particularly when you're the older brother. Again, what you're saying might be right, but at times they're going to need another voice. I've learned that, at times folks need another voice. It can't be, you got to let folks be themselves first, and then they'll allow them to come around, but they have to be able to, it's their choice. It's not yours. But in terms of my takes and views with Portland, this is more pressure, and rightfully so, because now on the good side, vis-a-vis Mr. M.A. Udoka, you're talking about Houston that's recovering from the Daryl Morey debacle a couple of years ago in China, saying what he said. He leaves, bringing somebody new, bringing this coach. It doesn't work out, which is why they have, top 5 pick after top 5 pick after top 5 pick. But next thing you know, you look up, got a team of Jalen Green, who they flipped for Durant, Amen Thompson, who talk about what you know and who you know, how he's looking with M.A. to guide him, all-star level. Jabari Smith now coming into the starting lineup, ready for the increased role. Reed Shepherd not even getting his opportunity yet. He's next up. People forget. Yes, Van Fleet is a serviceable point guard. But honestly, the backcourt needs to be, it's Reed's time. He's not a number 3 overall pick to be coming off the bench, as good as Van Fleet is. It's Reed's time to learn this year. Next year, year 3, he's the starting point guard. So you have an Oklahoma City situation where you have a Reed Shepherd, dog. You have an Amen Thompson. You have a Jabari Smith. And then you have a Kevin Durant. You have a Sangoon in the 4th largest market in the country. And then you have a Durant and Van Fleet to guide them with M.A. elite coach who's learned his lessons at the helm. Portland, what are you going to do? Okay? You have the same young, highly drafted firepower. You have 2 guys, Drew and Dame. Now, Drew is kind of in a situation. Because if I'm Drew Holiday, I'm not, I don't have time. I'm trying to win. And in 2K, where Dame can start the season, or maybe in 2K they hold him out, but when you're playing just exhibition, maybe if you did a season, Dame would have to be out because he's out in real life. But if you did an exhibition, you'd have Drew Holiday and Dame in your backcourt. You'd have Shaden Sharp, Grant, Danny Avdija, Clennigan, So in 2K, Portland is going to be a problem. But in real life, they're going through next year. Now, again, a lot hinges on Drew, if he can be sold on this process. to be a cornerstone player. I do everything I can to keep Drew. If that's not feasible, you have to move off of Drew, but I would be looking for, again, and Portland is a distinctive destination. I don't know many people that are chomping at the bit to move to Portland unless they have business interest and connections to the Allen family. So I'd like to see them move forward. But who knows? Now, let's come back. The rest of the league, particularly the Celtics. And by the way, shout out to talk about Run DC, not Run DMC, Run DC, and the man, El Presidente. It's a novelty shirt, I got back in the day. You know what I mean? Got a center. So they have depth in their front court. Hansen, Clinigan. Good. They compete, they defend. They just don't win games. Pull this up. Some Summer League action going on. British Open kicking off. Just take a look. No, I need you to see the standings. 36 and 46 isn't terrible. Three games out of the play-in. All right, so a bit of a correction there. Okay, they didn't fall as far off the pace as the Pelicans of the world, the Jazz of the world. Utah winning only 17 games, won 20 more games essentially than Utah, 15 more games than the Pelicans. So there's a distinction between how did Dave Chappelle say, the stickiest of the icky, the lowest of the low, right? There's a distinction there, between those teams, in Portland, Phoenix, San Antonio, were, on the heels of the play-in tournament. They were right there. And so talk about a 3-game swing, 4 or 5-game swing to get into the play-in, which in the Western Conference is an achievement in and of itself. And then you try to say, okay, let's get into the playoffs. Let's start learning to fly. You're in the play-in, so you're talking about a first-round matchup against an Oklahoma City, against the Houston, against the Denver. So, but maybe you can push them to 6 or 7. Show me something. Is the point. Let's go ahead and take a look at Portland's roster before we get ready to move and groove. As I said, a number of things. Folks are more than welcome. Check in. Me, Casa, Sue. believe Donovan's last name is pronounced Klingon. I should know this. He's a UConn guy. Klingon. Hey, he averaged a block a game last year. And he led them in rebounds. Only playing 19 minutes a game. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of the UConn roots. Klingon. My bad, Donovan. And that's a situation where I might actually run into him. It's one of these cool things where the pros come back and attend AAU events. Right? It's a cool thing. And I can't even pronounce his name correctly, which is disrespectful. Got to step my game up. All right, let me get up off my high horse. Shaden Sharp playing 72 games, starting 52, averaging 18.5, giving him four boards, a couple assists, about a steal. So Shaden's showing me something. Danny Avdija, kind of same thing. He's starting a couple. He's coming off the bench, essentially averaging 17 and 7 with 4. So that's good basketball right there. Grant starting all those games, not healthy last year, but playing a little, bit more minutes, but averaging 14. I like to see that. DeAndre, we talked about the 14 and 10. Scoot, who is in a Jalen Suggs type reserve role, but a Jalen Suggs without the same consistency. Looking forward to seeing Suggs have, Cole Anthony going to Milwaukee where he can showcase more. Suggs going nowhere, but having the opportunity to showcase more. But I respected both of them for sharing time and being team first. Okay, Scoot, 12, 5 assists in diminished minutes. And then their bench mob, Kamara coming in, Thibault, whatever you need. Klingon, maximizing his less than 20 minutes. Robert Williams, I hope he's healthy, but doesn't seem that he has plenty left in the tank as far as Portland is concerned. Okay. So some positive signs, right? And a big question mark, because Drew Holiday would be sacrificing, and it may be too much to ask. I can understand that, to be a part of this rebuild. But Shaden's locked in. Avdija, Grant, Kamara, Thibault. They got guys that are playing the right way and for the right things. So you add Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard to that. Now you could be cooking with some oil. Cooking with that good grease. But I need to see it. As I've said, and I've said, and I've said again. And to start the season, this is a team, forget about drop something in my pocket. Forget about, what are they talking about? I heard a narrative about the Dodgers, how they're just playing the long game. They have a win streak here, a losing streak there. They're just, they got an embarrassment of riches, boatloads of talent. So they're saying the Dodgers are just cruising into the playoffs The goal is to get to the playoffs healthy, and then we can deploy all these weapons at that particular point in time. But we're not trying to win 125, 130 games. We're trying to develop, we're trying to grow, trying to build, and then we're going to unleash when we get to the playoffs. Right? Portland can't take that approach. Portland has to take the 73-9 or 72-10 approach. Their regular season starts game 1, and this is how basement teams ought to conduct themselves, because you've been off, right? Folks, you either might know or not know, depending on your consistency, but when you oversleep, you wake up, you're still tired. Okay? Still groggy. Schedule thrown off more because you overslept. Now you're going to be wide awake when you should, be going in to get that REM sleep, that REM sleep. I speak like I know a little bit about this, here and there. That's my same view for these lottery teams. All this extra time that you have off, is it just you're just counting down the days until you have to go back, quote unquote, have, must, required, rather than want? Or are you saying, listen, I'm coming into this next season, i.e. a young Draymond in Golden State when he had to carve out his role, which he did and has kept ever since. So he's coming into camp fired up, to make these changes, to make these improvements. Once again, Chris bringing up some solid points. So shout out to the Trailblazers. They got some things percolating. Beal to the Clips, another win-win. Ty Lue knows his business. As I've said, the Clippers are known for reclamation projects. Bringing in folks who couldn't quite get right in other destinations, had some baggage. Come up under Ty Lue's leadership. Daddy Warbuck, Steve Ballmer, overseeing it all. Lawrence Frank in the front office. Sean Fine, pride of Barnstable, Massachusetts. Hall of Famer, the local high school. A director of player development. Not only do you not hear about these folks and what they're doing off the court, i.e. running around with Cardi B, these updates that are going around the Commonwealth, but they play serious, consistent, meaningful, winning basketball. So what do I think of Beal to the Clippers? Their starting lineup on paper, and for the 2K folks out there, I wish I could get back, you know what I mean? Wish, what could have, should. But, my gaming roots, 2K folks out there in television land, our starting lineup of Ibaka at the 5, All-Star, honorable mention All-Star 2025, Kawhi, the 4, the leaper, Derek something or another, energy player at the 3, Beal at the 2, Harden at the 1. What? Take a look at the Clippers. So the Clippers starting lineup is ferocious. Guys are getting longer in the tooth, clearly. But the Clippers organization will rest them. Ben Simmons off the bench. Chris Dunn. Hearing Bogdanovich to retire. Derek Jones will be the starter. Eubanks. Right? Patty Mills. What do I think of the Clippers? They are a well-built, skillfully composed. Okay, not out there diving into the LeBron sweepstakes or the Giannis sweepstakes or so on and forth. They're saying, okay, we're going to grow where we're planted. These are the things that work. We're going to continue to do things that work. We're going to continue to build up guys that have been here, make them better, and then we'll go out and get these discount deals where they become available. To maximize. So Clippers look like they're going to be a second round opponent that's going to push one of the big 3 or 4. Let's say a big 3. So the Clippers break through, they win their first round matchup. But then again, now who are they going to beat in the first round? Right? That's where it's getting tricky now, because if they're the 5 seed and San Antonio is the 4, that's a 7-game series. Do you go with San Antonio and their young Lions, or the Clippers with their older players but more experience? It's tough. Get my seat straightened out. Right. I see the Clippers securing a 4 or 5 seed. If San Antonio does not launch with De'Aaron Fox and W.N.B.A leading the charge, Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant, not far behind. If Vassell and others on the bench. If San Antonio doesn't launch, and as they say, lollygags, hangs around, perseverates, procrastinates, the Clippers can come up and get that 4 seed, putting San Antonio in a situation where, right, that 4-5 matchup is so tough. You're going to have a good team going home, as you would 4-5. They're very closely ranked. But the Western Conference, it's a situation of I have to stay out of the 6 and below. Because 6, 7, 8 in the West, that's Denver, Oklahoma City, Houston. You're not advancing, as far as I'm concerned, past those teams in the first round. So it puts a lot of pressure on the Clippers, the Lakers, Houston. Excuse me, not Houston. Dallas. Had another team. We shall see. And so the Clippers, once they get something, I go back to this team in years past, knocking off a Utah Jazz team that was loaded under the capable leadership of Quinn Snyder, beating them in 6 or 7 games when they had injuries to KG, to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Like, they've just been around, hanging around. Clippers are a team I do not want to see in the playoffs. Do not want to see them in the playoffs. So it's a solid move, them getting Beal. Discount shopping, low drama, and now you look at a starting 5 that's as good as any in the association. Okay, let's see if we have any more. I shouldn't have got it booted out. Yep, good. So we're good on IG. Sometimes I got to refresh. Socials are good. I hope everybody out there is good. Appreciate folks on the Twitter-X machine for tuning in. Q3 Media. Get my chair straight. Move back a bit. All right. Let's see. In the association, do we have... I saw a post about... And I'm going to keep this brief. Vis-a-vis LeBron. You know, the post now is that, you know, there's growing consensus that LeBron James will retire after this upcoming season. There's growing consensus. Let me start by saying the consensus that's growing is a conversation between LeBron James, Rich Paul, and Maverick Carter. And within that conversation, this is my view. I don't think the matter of retirement came up at all. Based on the fact that his son Bryce is going to be a freshman at the University of Arizona before blasting off to be drafted in the NBA, preferably by the Lakers. For the fulfillment of a family dream and the fulfillment of the Lakers' coffers with ticket sales and interest. So because of that, the idea of LeBron retiring after this year makes no sense to me. If I did all of this to play with my son Bronny, I wouldn't extend my career at least one more year to mentor and encourage Bryce. Orchestrate it vis-a-vis, i.e. Bronny, so that he could be on the Lakers, which I don't think at this point in time is a heavy lift for LeBron. And so this reporting about leaving, about angling, okay, fame game at its best. Wag the dog, masterclass. But I just keep coming back to, in reality, for the aforementioned reasons and others that have been stated ad infinitum, LeBron James isn't going anywhere or retiring anytime soon. I'm right with you on this, Chris. Right? Maverick put this out there a couple years ago. LeBron wants to own a team in the NBA and the NFL. Shout out to LeBron. Shout out to Jaylen Brown, talking about bringing Black Wall Street to Boston, and he's made notable strides to date. Doing the work, being present. Tip my hat to Jaylen Brown. Shout out to the Theus Foundation. Solid summertime opportunities for the students in the Commonwealth, specifically in Boston. So LeBron, and if NBA teams coming online in Vegas, you got Michael Jordan credentials. He retired a couple years. Bobcats are up. Number of people put in for the team. It goes to Michael Jordan. So I think the NBA would be equally enthusiastic about LeBron James stepping into that ownership chair. Which is so like the whole theory is doing well and doing good. Didn't realize Bays didn't realize he was from City Champions. Had to look this kid up. Bowsing. Yeah, so I will go ahead and get some more information. Might have been yeah, sorry. Thank you for the commentary, Chris. Yeah, tough injury. Which you never want to see, right? Never want to see these type of injuries, particularly in summer league. Back to Paul George hurting himself, going into the Olympics. You know, and you just that fine line between competing and going for it and making a team, and you got to protect yourself, right? You gotta, particularly anytime you explode, you take off to the basket. You got to be ready to fall, and one of the things that Charles Barkley talks about, that basketball players have to be careful about is you got to fall the right way. Ankles, wrists, elbow, it's the elbow, you gotta, yeah. Right? 100,000%. That's one of the things where for me, I'm not one of these folks that sits down and watch Grey's Anatomy, ER, first 48 hours, all that stuff. There's people in this world that can do that, everybody has things that bother them, so I'm not for these catastrophic injuries. I don't think that's really, but what I do gain insight into, it's two things. First of all, just so much respect for first responders is what I took. And the Gordon Hayward thing, it happened on the first quarter in a season. The Celtics were supposed to win a championship. So that was, not at the end of a year, it's like just right off the bat, you're going to want to compete for a championship, and that happens. And your season is all of a sudden just derailed. Never mind, the player is hurt. But I specifically remember, while just like turning the TV off, how the support staff came over and was with him, and did they just like, they're like right there in your face, put the air cast on, the whole 9 yards. So those people that, you want to talk about angels among us, first responders. And that's something that I always take into, that I'm always, yelling at people and, nah, I can't stand you. And this person, and then you find out, oh, so-and-so is a nurse. So-and-so is a doctor. So-and-so is an EMT. So-and-so is a paramedic. I'm just always, people sometimes, when people, I work in education, so, oh, wow, you're a teacher, and I understand. I'm really appreciative of that. Education is certainly, the stairway in the meritocracy. And so, having teachers and excelling in school, will open up doors in a fiercely capitalist society. That's for sure. But it's something that I've just kind of been involved in and enjoyed. So it's kind of natural to me, so I'm just glad I get a chance to share that. Whereas, those in the medical field and, as I said, people that, help people, in crisis moments. Now, certainly, when something happens, that's the second point that I wanted to kind of bring out, in terms of, you'd be amazed what you can do and achieve, like when you have to do it, right? So, being fully aware of shortcomings and flaws and fears, in those moments, when you get into that flight or fight survival mode, people, we go into a different dimension, and we can kind of power through. So I guess these, bottom line, thoughts, prayers, hopes for Baisley, and to come back and that he gets the care that he needs, and he's able to get back healthy. But it's like, sometimes in sports we see folks like this is not just a conversation pieces for podcasts in the middle of the night on Cape Cod. We're talking about, like, this is like contracts. This is right. No, what am I saying here? This is sink or swim type stuff. So folks are going all out, and they have to, they just put it all on the line. So Baisley, speedy recovery. Respect. All right. So speaking of everything being on the line, I want to let's take a look at Mr. TJ Watt, who got paid okay. So TJ Watt, getting all of his money, $123 million. You can see overtaking Myles Garrett, Pittsburgh securing their cornerstone piece. You get what you negotiate, folks. That's why I frankly respect how this played out. Steelers are a first-rate organization. Celtics win. Yes, indeed. Um, and let me see. It's funny how you're thinking about this, you're thinking about that, you're juggling. But we live, folks. No, Watt. Speaking of Dame, loyal to the soil. Okay, I'm. This is where I'm at. I want to stay here. I want to continue to build. I want to continue to grow. I'm not going chip chasing. Jumping on this bandwagon, jumping on that bandwagon. I'm about this life, this Steel City, Great Lakes, blue collar, tough life. Okay, he embodies that. 30 plus sacks in the last couple years. But the narrative is I'm not taking another haircut. Took a haircut over here, thinking about this, okay. Now it's time to secure the bag. And so from the team side, I respect the fact that they showed respect for his open-mindedness. And he got the money that he's worth. But again, you have to now make the calculation. Steelers, a team that traditionally, consistently invests heavy on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of folks say, look, it's an offensive league. You got to invest on the other, you got to be on offense. In terms of the A.F.C. North and the gauntlet that it is, you have a tale of two cities when you look at Pittsburgh and when you look at Cincinnati. Cincinnati, all offense all the time. Pittsburgh, all defense. But now we have a quarterback who, theoretically, because you don't know what you're going to get with Mr. Rodgers, Aaron, that is, not the gentleman who had a neighborhood, which was beautiful. Beautiful days in said neighborhood. Can Pittsburgh now take the best of these two worlds, combine them together, and really make some noise? The Steelers are the Clippers of the NFL. Well-run organization. Okay? That are going to stand up. Now, I don't know how much standing up Daddy Warbucks does. That's Steve Ballmer. On the social political side, he certainly has a right to, he's the richest owner in team sports. So it's his money. We'll not talk necessarily about concentrations of wealth and things of that nature, which is a fact of life as the day is long. We'll just leave it at that. But Steve Ballmer puts his money where his mouth is in terms of saying, I'm going to come in, own the Clippers, and we're going to build our own arena, and I'm going to make it happen. The Intuit Dome, never mind that they have, more toilets than any other dome in the, but how it's built, the feel, the atmosphere there, kind of wanting to make it more of a Euro soccer feel. We know Steve Ballmer gets into it, cheering and sweating and going crazy. He was the same way at Microsoft. If you didn't know who he was, you'd be like, that guy is a fanatic, because he's most certainly fanatical, as well as being filthy rich. Ballmer's interesting, just seeing some interviews. He was at Harvard with a young man from Washington State that had grandiose ambitions, a gentleman by the name of Bill Gates, and they struck it off. The Steelers are the Clippers with titles. Duly noted. Duly noted. But Steve Ballmer talks about, kind of not being sure what he wanted to do. Leaves Harvard. He's at grad school. Maybe he didn't believe he's at Stanford. Grad school is kind of not sure. Thought about becoming a screenwriter. Wasn't 100% sure. And then Bill Gates came. He says, "I'm starting this company called Microsoft, and I need you." Rest is history, right? Since that again, those times of journeying, that vision quest that you find yourself on. To get to your end destination. So I respect the organization and them not necessarily being favorites, but them having favorable odds to win as far as I'm concerned, because I had the Clippers over Denver, which they could have done, made it, to Game 7, just by doing the right things all the time and not coming off of that, not giving up on that, right? Not going for the, what I'm essentially trying to say is they both play the long game, and they give their fans, but that's where with the Steelers and the, more so, it's really both teams. And just to kind of lay it on the line, it's that while you have all these connecting points, they keep players, they develop players. The fans can develop a connection to those players. The fans can kind of understand because there's continuity. Like, this is who we are. This is our identity. This is how we're going about it. Okay. And even though on paper we're not constantly, hunting these big free agents to put together what appears to be a championship team on paper, on the face of it, but doesn't have the infrastructure or the foundation that a team like the Steelers have. So you feel that sense of loyalty and the connection, which Steelers fans most certainly do. But the rebuttal that I keep hearing vis-a-vis the Steelers is they're stuck in the wrong century, just like Junior Soprano. They're living in the wrong era. And all these things that you've said are good and well on a small town mom and pop level. Okay? But in the real world, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, these behemoths are going to move through and take up everything. So back to the Steelers, this matchup with them and the Bengals fascinates me. Okay. And it speaks to the point of the Steelers having this negotiation, being tough-nailed, tough-minded, and what? Same thing. The Rooney family, there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of appreciation, there's a lot of common ground. But when it comes to this negotiation and these dollars, I don't know you. I'm coming. All that, good, good vibes and friendly and helpful and yada yada. I don't know you. I needs mines. Okay, and you put the personal aside and you get down to brass tacks in business. Okay, while if you are fortunate, kind of remembering, let me not take it to a certain, let me not burn these bridges that have been built up over the years within this negotiation process. Yes, I got to be hard-nosed, nitty-gritty, right? Because you get what you negotiate. That's something that I've learned really over time, and you look back and you say, man, I kind of didn't know my worth, and there were certainly some poor dad moments there, right? Because I took the personal into the professional, into the negotiation space, and allowed that to dictate when it's two different realms. You can take the personal in terms of how you conduct yourself with civility and professionalism, but that doesn't mean you take any less than your market value. So, how this played out with the Steelers, giving them a roster that defensively can clamp down on teams in this pity pat, two-hand touch. Everything's a penalty. Offense over everyone. NFL. A team and a defense that within those circumstances, and by the way, many of these safeguards, particularly the blindside hit, I didn't have as much of an issue with the hip drop tackle. I know at times, it kind of, but go down is my thinking as well, right? These hip drop tackles, right? If somebody, you don't want anything to give out, but you're huffing and puffing for every single, you're kind of, and there's somebody 300 pounds that's just dropping to, like I understand you got to get every yard, but fall with that person. Unless you got Derrick Henry DNA, you're not dragging a 300-pound person once they get their arms around, once they bear hug you. So that's the connecting point that I have to make in terms of some of these injuries. Like, I get it. You got to, and the film and the tape, and you're just out there, wild man running. But if a 300-pounder lock you up, then you're going to have to move, and you keep moving this way, and the 300-pounder is moving that way. So at some point, your momentum is going to have to go with them, so that you can fall safely. So I didn't have a huge issue with the hip drop tackle. I thought that could have stayed. Okay, back to the Steelers and the A.F.C. North. I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. Him showing up to Arrowhead Stadium in the mink coat and taking down Patty Mahomes. He battles Mahomes. Burrow is a gamer. He's been a gamer since he stepped in. Talking about eye test, back to the Portland Trailblazers. Straight from the beginning. What can I see? What are you showing me? Not maybe, possibly. What's good? So with Joe Burrow, when he's healthy and he's out there, that's a dude. Hasn't, again, speaking of what you know and who you know, didn't go into the optimal situation with Andy Reid as his coach and guru. So he hasn't had, but switch Mahomes and Joe Burrow and tell me if Joe Burrow doesn't have all these Super Bowls. Thing about Joe Burrow and why this Watt deal fascinates me within the context of the AFC North is, I think about the Bengals. They paid this guy. Now they can't pay the next guy. Or is this a situation vis-a-vis the Indiana Pacers who just went into the NBA Finals, but they have this theory, we're not going into the luxury tax under any circumstances because, we're just not doing it. Okay, so much for your championship team. Like, you know what I mean? You ain't winning a championship on the cheap. Which, again, back to the NBA, should inform the commissioner about this second apron that's supposed to, quote unquote, make the playing field more level. Well, these teams aren't willing to go into luxury tax under any circumstances. That's their fault. How many times did Dan Gilbert go into luxury tax? How many times did Joe Lacob go into luxury tax? Those are smaller markets. They did it. So it's not the Knicks or the Lakers or the Rockets or the Bulls' fault that a smaller market team refuses to go into luxury tax. That's their fault. Not a huge fan of the second apron. But back to football, the Bengals are, for me, correct me if I'm wrong, that team that just has the mindset, we're not going into the second apron. Okay, Steelers are stuck in the wrong century. I hear your point. I'm going to conclude. The Steelers give TJ Watt all his money, and I'm happy he got all his money. You bring in Aaron Rodgers to catch lightning in a bottle. If they miss out in the playoffs, and it doesn't look like 3 teams from the North are making the playoffs. And so Baltimore is probably going to be 1. So the Steelers or the Bengals are not making the playoffs, which is wild to me, that Joe Burrow would not even make the playoffs. In those pivotal games, I want to see how this plays out. The invincible force versus the immovable object, right? We have that conversation. Joe Burrow on one side, TJ Watt and the dogs on the other side. TJ Watt, you got all your money. You got to go get Joe Burrow. Because Cincinnati, their strategy, we are trying to outscore everybody, playing the 40s and the 50s. Okay? So can you hold Joe Burrow to 27? Can you hold him to 24? Right? Can you clamp down on these teams that have for analytics reasons or whatever, just said, defense is negotiable. We can. Defense is, the term is not the top priority, for lack of a better way of saying this. Right? You got the Chiefs. You got the Broncos. You got the Chargers. Okay. So, again and again and again and again, Cincy kind of, I just... I know, this is a smaller market, yada, yada, yada. But you have a generational talent in Joe Burrow, and you're playing in, like, you realize you're in the A.F.C. North. You realize what that is and what that means. Since you got to break bread. Or if they win and beat out the Steelers playing Moneyball, then this conversation will go the other way. And the Steelers, even though I'm happy, TJ Watt got all his money, and that's not necessarily might not be the summary point. Okay, if the Bengals are able to make the playoffs this year and the Steelers spending all this money on TJ Watt, I'm happy that he got his money, but spending all this money on defense, then it might finally be time for the Steelers to say, you know what, as Popovich did. Pop did this, he was a defensive guy, and then Pop said, something, it's a faster game. When they ran the Miami Heat out of the building in 14 in 5 games, right? Pop wasn't playing a Tom Thibodeau slower pace, in the 90s, high 80s. No, he's playing a running gun game with defense. Saw the game change, and he changed. So Steelers is the last call for the Steel Curtain. Okay, it doesn't pay dividends, as many are speculating. We got to do something else. Now, to the point, solid point that Chris brought up in terms of 1 wide receiver and 3 tight ends, and a ground and pound type of an offense, ball control offense. This is something that I'm in the world of basketball. We need paint points. I'm sick of all these threes. Post somebody up. Go to the basket. Make these teams feel you. So when you talk about ground and pound, you're speaking, that in basketball, that's what, you got to balance it out. I don't, all the just threes and layups. But my rejoinder for that point, going over to another team, in the conversation that's been had about the best quarterback in the league, is that time and again you're hearing this narrative that about Jalen Hurts and where he belongs, and is Jaden Daniels better than him, and so on and forth. Does he deserve to be ranked higher? And he's won Super Bowls, and so this type of narrative. But a recurring argument is that, look, the first 4 games, Jalen Hurts got his money. The Eagles tried to say, okay, you're the guy. You're gonna throw the ball 30 times, and we're gonna make it about you. Okay, you could use this argument for the Ravens as well, as they were trying to figure out how to use Derrick Henry. So the first 4 games, Eagles say, we're going to spread it out. We're going to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands, and he's going to pick these teams apart. It's going to be on his back, i.e., vis-a-vis like a Joe Burrow, type of a quarterback. And they were 2-2. Philly, if anybody knows, never mind Rocky, never mind the fact that that's where my family lives on my mom's side. My grandmother lived for many years. Cousins are still there, near and dear to my heart. Right, so the connection for me, why the Eagles are my team, right? And I've said this, say it again and again. I wanted Detroit to break through, but the Eagles just historically are my squad. Going back to Randall Cunningham, going back to the Rock, being born in the great state of New Jersey. Okay, these are the roots. This is the roots, my people. Right. So, in terms of the Eagles, folks, you are aware and that they have a jailhouse in the stadium, a court and a jail in the stadium. Because of the wild. Never mind them booing Santa. So, they talk about Philly and they love it, but Northeast just rough. And that it's not even about Northeast or being cold or, because everyone's cold in the Northeast in the winter, fortunately, not going to make a climate, point. But, and I believe it was Memorial Stadium, the Eagle Stadium, and they just said, it's too much, where we need a facility right in the stadium to process all of these cases. So you do the craziness, you go right in, they write it up, you go right in to see the judge, boop, 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 gone. Come in, he did this, threw the thing across, knocked this person down there. Well, he did what? Assault and battery, drunken disorderly, boop, 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 gone. So it's it's not funny, first of all, because people can't control themselves to like we should. Again, speaking about being adults, and I know it's important. I know there's stresses in life, but you don't go to a football game to get into a fight. And if you do go to football, then you should stay home. Okay, these folks. Maybe some of you have television land, or some of these folks who I respect, and that they're at Arrowhead Stadium. Let's see, we're gonna have to get this for you in the screen. At Arrowhead Stadium at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or wherever the doors open. See if we can get this for you. See if I can get the line to get into Arrowhead Stadium, and then we'll head back to this point. And maybe this, frankly, this is probably not. This is football, I'm not, I'm speaking to why football is the
starting at just $27,285. We all love our F-150, and with all these amazing new features, the prices have definitely gone up over the years. So how about 5.9%?
She's like 7 o'clock in the morning. 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Shout out to the Celtics pod. So Arrowhead Stadium, Gillette Stadium, MetLife Stadium. I get it. To a certain extent. And then I don't get it. All right, back to 3 tight ends and ground and pound. So the Eagles were 2-2 with letting Jalen cook. And they came back and they said, all right, that's we're not just shooting threes and layups anymore. We're gonna have a balanced offense, and we're gonna do it off the run. We have this dominant offensive line. Even after losing Kels, we're gonna do it off of the run. And they went 12-1 and won the Super Bowl in a resounding fashion. Okay. Toting the rock, as they say. Great defense. So, can the Steelers duplicate that? All right, so they don't have a running back. All right, they don't have Saquon Barkley, so no. Okay. Point taken. No Saquon, no go. Gotcha. But they also have, in Jalen Hurts, he's younger, but Aaron, they got somebody that can sling it. That can really sling it. Now, does he have this weapon, that weapon, and, he doesn't have, okay, fine. But he can make all the throws you need him to make, and see sometimes, when there's an opportunity to strike downfield and make that throw as well. So that's what I'm interested in. People say the Steelers, old world, out of touch, but the Eagles, not that the Steelers have the same talent as the Eagles. That's not what I'm saying. Shout out to Harry Roseman, who people wanted to run out the building a couple years ago, didn't believe in Sirianni. All that stuff has dissipated. We forget all that. Sirianni, who the heck is this guy? Harry Roseman, what's he doing? Now he's the guru. But there was a lot of questions and animus and all the rest of that, which I understand. It's a sports crazy city. The Phillies, the Eagles, 76ers. All right. But, and you could even say with Baltimore featuring Derrick Henry, playing off of Derrick Henry and the run game. This seems to be what winning teams are doing in Kansas City. It's not just Patrick Mahomes running back there and cooking. Ball control, relying on the defense, playing a longer game. So we'll see. We shall see. Staying in the AFC, specifically the AFC North. I don't want to go too far around the world. For the purposes of this episode. All right. Talked about and I might get to this last point in Slice of Life as we shift gears. As I see something else. No CC, no Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game. That's a loss. It's a big loss. Because of a groin injury? That don't sound right. That don't feel right to me. That don't feel right. That feels like, you are the biggest draw. Yeah, I got to get into that, folks. I can't let that go. I don't like this. So I got to speak. I got to speak on this. Let's go around and see how folks are doing in television land. Twitter keeps having me on and kicking me out. Thank you. I'm back. The X Machine. The X-Men. Wolverine. A couple people rocking. Yeah, folks. So we touched on it earlier. And I gotta dive into this. Gotta sound off on this. Because it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. You understand? Gotta trust your instinct. Gotta trust my instincts on this. So Caitlin Clark's not playing in the W.N.B.A. All-Star game because of a groin injury. What are we talking about here, folks? A groin injury, meaning what? What are we talking? Is this a degenerative situation? Because long story not so long, So Michael Jordan, we're not going to have the Air Jordan commercial. You're not going to sell Air Jordans. You're not going to be in the All-Star game when you're this ascending rookie that has all. You're going to skip these events that are going to take your brand, your platform, and this league into the stratosphere because of a groin injury. Does Caitlin Clark need to play 48 minutes of this All-Star game? Or be in the All-Star game, start, score a couple buckets, dap up a couple people, and keeps it moving. This is a problem, folks. The Olympic situation last year, okay. LeBron and Carmelo, they weren't All-Stars as rookies. They played in the rookie sophomore game, first year out. Okay, Tim Duncan was an All-Star as a rookie because it's different. He did 4 years at Wake Forest, so comes into the league at 22 versus 18. But Caitlin Clark skipping the All-Star game for anything less than an ACL or an Achilles? Now, well, it's a groin. This isn't a playoff game. Literally, she plays 10 minutes for the game. She doesn't have to play in the second half. She starts, she comes out, rains down a couple threes, runs up and down for 5 minutes. Boop, boop, sub out. She comes back for the last 5 minutes of the second quarter based on their rotations, comes out, shoots a couple more threes, goes to the foul line, gives a high five. Good. You get your pictures, everybody high-fiving. We're talking about 10 minutes of basketball, and she can't make it? We'll get to what was said yesterday at the SBs and some of the off-color jokes in a minute. But this is a problem. I'm not saying players don't get banged up and hurt and injured and flying around. You take injuries, okay? Nicked up, sore. You're a professional athlete. This is what do we, you know what I mean? What? But not to ghost an All-Star game when you are the face of the league. Folks, we got to go back in time a little bit here. Did I share the screen? And I can't. Did I? Let's come back. I shared it, then I went away from it. We're going back to it. Or I don't know if I shared it in the first place because I'm so This is a problem. Okay? For the aforementioned reasons, vis-a-vis, and everybody knows, the rising tide to lift all boats. But beyond that, I feel it's a problem because what I'm sensing is that, this nonsense, us against them, okay, has now reached the level of threatening the entire operation. And let me just use a quick example, a blast from the past, and then I'll come back to why this is unacceptable. Why the W.N.B.A, with the resources that they have, which are growing, needs to deploy said resources and make it so that Caitlin Clark is at the All-Star game and playing and does this 10 minutes and then can ride off into the sunset. Okay? Yeah, there are players that don't like Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark doesn't like other players. So what? A. B, I say so what because a league cannot allow. All right, somebody doesn't like me and I don't like the other person. All right, okay. All right. The W.N.B.A needs to structure it. Everybody, people that don't like each other is fine. But what I'm saying is that your star players, and here's where I'm unsure. Because it's, first of all, what I'm saying from the league standpoint is, are players antagonizing Caitlin Clark to that great of an extent that she does not want to go to work? Is that what's taking place? Okay? Is there a situation, and obviously nobody's gonna, not obviously, but there's a certain level of security and decorum, where, people, you just don't talk to other people. We go back to the Lakers, in 04, that were, everybody was feuding with everybody. Shaq against Kobe, Kobe against Malone, Phil against Kobe, Shaq against Phil. Okay, nobody liked anybody, and they didn't speak. Fine. But in terms of the operations, we just, right, I have to be around these people, but you're not almost, you are in your own bubble. Meaning it doesn't get to the situation. There was reporting this year about all these fights in the Phoenix Sun locker room, okay, here and there. Right? So there could be some fisticuffs that may happen because you just can't avoid it. But beyond that, there's enough security and everything else. Whereas you're not going to interfere with me getting to and from work, doing all the media stuff, and then just going home. Right? It's not going to be that type of a situation. Whereas, I have to do my job and then also possibly, get into these altercations and then go back to doing my job. Okay? So the NBA, and I'm going to get to my further point. But yeah, you want to talk about the Jailblazers, who didn't want Greg Oden, and that when Greg Oden was drafted, never mind, that Greg Oden Kevin Durant draft, but the Portland, had some characters, and before Greg Oden got to Portland, a good amount of those characters were shipped out, right? Because they were resetting the organization. What does it have to do with Caitlin Clark in the All-Star game? All right, my question is, and I'm not like, is there that much trash talking going on behind the scenes? Okay, so nobody's going to do anything physical. All right, we got that. But this person is just going to constantly be antagonizing or talking trash again and again and again and again and again to said star player. How about that? Or this other all-star, possibly, is just going to have all this negative again and again and again and again and again to said player. I.e. Michael Jordan being frozen out of the All-Star game. Right? Now, I don't doubt that those things did and do take place. That these guys who appear to be cordial, friendly, forward-facing, actually despise each other. I don't wish this to be the case. It's certainly not healthy. Or frankly necessary. Okay? Because at a certain point, like, okay, somebody so-and-so doesn't like me, and then there's nothing I can do for them to like me, but we have to share a space. All right, so then I just distance myself in, all right, I know who they are. I'm aware of it. I don't have to acknowledge them. They're probably beyond hello and goodbye, good morning and good evening. And then I'm just going to do my job, mindful that I cannot work with that person, mindful that they may try to, throw stumbling blocks, set traps that I will just definitely avoid because I know they're coming. And then just keep it moving and deal with them as little as possible, within my professional responsibilities. Right? Okay? That's the way it is. We're both, I don't know, but just theoretically, Caitlin Clark and other star players that don't see eye to eye. All right? So you're on this side of the locker room, I'm on that side of that. This is what I'm talking about. Is this taking place in the W.N.B.A? Are they managing and mitigating these personal feuds so that the business side of the league can move forward? Or, and I know, we'll talk about, the league and it doesn't make with the NBA. Okay, so fine. The league doesn't make what the other NBA makes. They got the CBA coming up. What I'm talking about is the functionality of the league. Because this is outlandish that Caitlin Clark, because of a quote-unquote groin injury. So I'm going crazy. Like, what is she, out for the season? Is the groin injury that bad? Are we talking about, she's not that, she's a young player. And I'm going on, and I haven't even made some of the points that I'm making, but because this is the rising tide to lift all boats. And it appears, never mind all this back and forth and people saying crazy stuff and the W.N.B.A. missing this moment for these secondary reasons, players seeming, the narrative that I continually hear. And I understand you can raise your voice, but this is a narrative that I'm continually hearing that, well, Caitlin Clark's great, but there's a lot of other great players. Well, Caitlin Clark's great, that's a lot of other great players. Okay? Not Caitlin Clark is great for A, B, C, D reasons. And she's becoming the face of the league and is going, and this is good for the W.N.B.A. And she adds all these positive attributes, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. That's what we need to hear. That's what resonates with people. Not, oh, well, Shohei Ohtani's great, but we also have Mookie Betts. We also have Freeman. We also have, this guy. I know Shohei's great, but what about Dave Roberts? Well, what about Clayton Kershaw? Shohei's a good player, but we've got all these other good. Who is buying that? Haven't seen a three-point field goal percentage. I'll take a look at it. Okay. I don't think that's decisive in her competing. She can shoot threes. Maybe she has a good year. Maybe she has a bad year. I don't really care. I know she can bomb away. And I know I would watch her compete. Just like when Steph went up against UNESCO, I would watch that. So again, first of all, and I'm not coming off of this, and a couple other things I need to connect to this point. But the W.N.B.A. right now is the CBA is unsustainable, and we need to negotiate. But we don't have Caitlin Clark at the All-Star game. But you want to talk to me about a negotiation for a CBA, and you can't take care of a golden goose? Caitlin Clark is not a one-to-one golden goose, but she's a transcendent player in a league that needs to lift itself up. Take away Michael Jordan from the 80s. What do you have? Huh? Take away Air Jordan from the 80s. Take away the band sneaker commercial from the 80s. Okay? Do we have that rising tide? Or do we still have tape delayed games? Thank you, Chris. Okay? She ain't shooting it well from three. It's a 3-point contest. It's an exhibition. So she's off this year. So what? Okay, if she wanted, I didn't need to know what Larry Bird's 3-point field goal percentage was when he won the 3-point shooting contest and didn't even take off his warm up. I don't care. Again, I was young. This is early 80s, so I was infant, but still, if you would have asked me, I would have told you. Larry Bird's in the 3-point shooting contest. Look, turn on the channel. Let's watch that. Oh, well, he's on. I don't care. I want to see Larry Bird. And if it was whoever else that was in the contest, if it was Adrian Dantley, if it was whoever, black, white, yellow, green, orange, if they're a star in the league and they're in one of these contests, I want to see it. Which is why I have to, this is some sleuthing that I'm doing on it, but what is the reason? Caitlin Clark, you're from Iowa. You're from the Field of Dreams land. You're supposed to be loyal to the soil of the game. Okay, if you can be at the All-Star game, you should be there. LeBron, year in and year out, even though this last year, LeBron, he didn't want to play the day of, which was kind of, I didn't really. Good question, Chris. I'd rather watch a W.N.B.A. game. I'm not a huge 3-on-3 person. You see, I'm not right. We gotta get up and down here, man. We gotta do some pace and space. Let's get the ball. Let's get it moving. Some running and gunning, baby. I want to see a ball game, 5-on-5. Get up the court, hustling, getting after it. Now, in terms of the big three, good question, Chris. I like the big three and what Ice Cube is doing because that's the senior tour for hoopers, right? Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, formerly Chris Jackson, Big Body Joe, who does his thing on Nightcap. Big Body Joe out there giving them buckets. Okay? Scalabrini, get a couple buckets. I just love Gary Payton is in the mix. We're going to get to Gary Payton in Slice of Life. So it's the senior tour for hoopers. So in that capacity, it's great. But, I want to see a ball game. I want to see, 4 flat, screen roll up against we're going to switch defense, press man. I want to see the chess match. And guys, what are we doing here? Never mind the fact that I keep hoopers. If you are a basketball person, you love and support the W.N.B.A. I said what I said. You love and support the W.N.B.A. if you're a hooper. And yeah, I'm the Cape Cod kid, screaming into, the void here, the abyss, however you want to put it. Doing my passion project, enjoying myself. But is it just me? Or why are all these NBA All-Stars, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, the late, great Kobe Bryant, LeBron, showing love to the W.N.B.A., going to the games, dapping up the players, pushing for them to be on coaching staff? Yeah, would love to see Boogie in the big three. Dwight Howard, Lance, come on out and get it going. But the big three, Chris, that you're making my point there with a lot of this great marinara that you're adding to this to this dish to bring the quality. You're making my point in terms of with the big three. You see what happens at some of these games. The players get into it and it's a problem, right? Lance Stevenson with the White, and they get into it. And why is it a problem? Because they don't have all this money for all this security, which you need when you're dealing with giants. So you see sometimes the big three, it gets out of hand. Okay, players, right? They're still playing. And they still have the same enthusiasm and attitude and everything else like that. How many security guards do you have at an NBA game on court side? I feel like it's a minimum of 15. Minimum of 15 security guards. Minimum. I honestly, playoff what 20 plus security in different facts in different places. Right? Meaning, right? I'm a trust, but I'm a verify too. I'm a trust you, but I'm a verify. Okay? So in terms of, right? This goes back to the late great David Stern and cleaning up the game. All the fist fights again, early 90s, Heat, Knicks, guys out there and flagrant foul. No, that right? It's bad for business. It's bad for business. I get it to a certain extent, and then I don't get it. Never mind an injury. Oh, can you believe, this Karl Malone, John Stockton, Patrick can't play because they sprained or, hurt, fractured, whatever, and fighting? Again, back to Charles Barkley and talking about how you need to protect your body, fall on the, you might have to fall on your behind. Take that, deep bone bruise. Okay, but you got to fall and protect yourself so you don't get injured. Obviously, the cerebral cortex is the top of the line. Okay, but that's what I'm sniffing right now. That's what I'm sniffing right now. We got some infrastructure things that are not being handled. Okay, as much as, and again, back to the big three, like you can just see, right? They're going by the honor code here, which can only take you so far. As certain, we want to see these guys in the league, but if you can't manage yourself, and we can't afford to have the infrastructure for you to manage yourself, then you got to go. Or whatever. Maybe you can write off those expenses. I hope so. But you need the big three, get some more security at those games. Or people that they know, so it shouldn't be going into the stands, so on and forth. You have it in the NBA, right? When there's a face-to-face, it's like 15 guys. Never mind coaches and coaching staffs, but then like security. You go here, you go there. This guy, you get flagrant eject. Okay, security gonna walk you out. And in these instances, I'm sure these guys, they're angry, they're fighting, but they don't even in the NBA, they don't even think about taking it to the next level because it's been ingrained in them that we have superior numbers to do what we want to do. We'll talk about another thing in Slice of Life is I saw Bronny James coming into the game with the Louis, had a Louis bag and everything else. But it just, you see them coming into the game and like all these different checkpoints that they have to go through. Yes. The NBA stepping its game up in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Also, what the NBA does and what they didn't do is when you go into you create a tunnel. So this guy can't throw things at you, as the players are going, this crazy vanish. No. Okay, that's done. In all these stadiums, we are bringing the tunnel with us. They didn't, no. We're doing a game. We're doing this. We bring this infrastructure with us, and this is how it's going to work. Okay, so all that extra stuff, all this stuff, all this unprofessional stuff that goes on and wants to go on and can go on that these leagues are very aware of we're not giving it the light of day. We're not giving it the light of day, and it's not going to. All right, and so decorum is maintained. Decorum is maintained. The show goes on. Never mind the load management and that foolishness. But if I pay my money to go see, the Celtics or the Fever play on this night, I can be confident that I'm going to see the player I want to see. That's why I paid the money. I paid this ticket price because I want to see this player, see what see what they're like, see what type of game they got going on. Right? And the All-Star game is the pinnacle of that, particularly for an upstart league, even though it's been in existence since 97. So we're coming up on what, 30 years? Been around since 97, my freshman year. I remember it. Houston Comets. Simmons, no. I've seen enough with Ben. So it's between CP3 and Westbrook. I'd lean Westbrook if I'm the Knicks. But none of those three really motivate me, all due respect, because, it's how do you fit, right? So Ben Simmons, I just can't trust it. I think the Clippers are a good place for him. But until I see him do something for the Clippers, which he's more than capable of, because, they're going to need, Kawhi's going to miss games. Like, they got guys that are going to miss games. So can I see Ben Simmons go out there and get me 12 rebounds and 7 assists and 7 points? Can I see him go out there and play like he was playing back in the day for the 76ers when they had him in his correct role, which is as a defensive stopper and everything player, before he was passing, when he had a dunk under the basket, but he's passing the ball away? Do we remember this? I believe that was against the Celtics, or, he's under the basket, has a dunk, and he passes it there. That's just some I don't care stuff. That's some self-sabotage stuff. I can't trust you. I can't have you around. You do something like that. Mental illness. Somebody didn't get, somebody was in your mentions. You didn't get the corner seat. You know what I mean? This, whatever the issue, whatever the patrician problem that was bothering Mr. Ben Simmons with his professional sports privilege life. Okay? Everybody has problems, I get it. But there's levels to this. So, and mental health, men's mental health particularly, mental health in general, I'm sensitive to all this. But doggone it, we talked about the greatest generation. We have more privileges and opportunities, access to resources. Okay? Than anybody. So as upset as I am, or you or anybody else, I'm going downstairs. I'm getting my Trader Ed's, my Cajun chicken Alfredo. I got some salad to go with it. I'm gonna bust down some water. Okay, I got some Snaggaroodies. Me and Willis gonna go for a walk. Come back. I gotta do some editing. I gotta do some paperwork. I'm good. I'm good. I have a fortunate life that I live. Do I have everything? Absolutely not. Do I have a bunch to work on? Yes, I do. But I got so many things and privileges and first world things that other people don't have. By and large, I'm good. Okay? So with Ben Simmons, some of the things, just as respectful and mindful as I am of what he does things on the basketball court that are just unacceptable. I'm not talking about the bricks. I'm talking about him just not making simple, basic basketball plays because his mind is somewhere else. I can't do it. I want him to come out for the Clippers and just act. This guy hasn't played basketball in like almost a decade. Never mind when he is at LSU. He's not. Is Ben Simmons even 30? Is he? Don't get me started. I understand Rumspringa coming up through. You know what I mean. But doggone it, it's a shame that youth is wasted on the young. It's a shame that youth is wasted on the young. That used to be me when people were saying that, and they was right. You get discouraged, frustrated, you sleep away the day, all that stuff. All that stuff. I remember it. You can't get that time back. Frankly, it's gone. Which is what the older folks were trying to tell you in those times. But at a certain point, you know what I mean? You just have so many things and opportunities to stay. Like, I can't get down with the prima donna, rock star, jaded, disillusioned rock star. I can understand, but I can't, you know what I mean? You just have spend some time with some people that don't have. Like Shaquille O'Neal talks about this. Like his stepdad, a military guy. He had a bad game. His family's from New York, and then they moved down to Texas. Dad's a military guy. He was playing a team in, I think he was playing the Nets and the Knicks or whatever. Stepdad come. What the heck is going on? What are you doing? Well, you don't know. He said, walked out. He said, 500 hours. You need to see me at 500 hours. Shaq tells this story. You might have seen it. 500 hours. You need to be here. Okay? Shaq understood that meant I may be Dad says I'm there. He said his stepdad, military, you don't speak unless spoken to. You don't speak unless spoken to. He got in the car and shut the heck up. 5 o'clock in the morning. Shaquille O'Neal, rookie sensation. Shut the heck up. They drove around the city. Said stepdad stopped. And they looked out, parked. And there was a bridge, early in the morning. Let's say let's say Newark, in an urban part, wherever. It's an urban place. And there's a city underneath the bridge. Excuse me. There's a family living underneath this bridge. He said, don't tell me a doggone thing about pressure. Privileged athletes. Don't tell me a doggone thing about pressure. That's pressure right there. Now go over there and help those people. Get out this car, go over there and help those people. Got out the car, went over, got some personal information. Okay, by the way, Shaq is worth $500 million right now. About $500 million is his net worth. And growing. And growing. And growing. Along with being top 20 all time and all the stuff he does in broadcasting. So it's worked out for him. Ben Simmons, LSU guy, Shaq, LSU guy as well. They've kind of had their back and forth. But that's my, he tells that story and right? Again, karma, but for the grace of God, there go young guys, I understand it. I went through a lot of it, as just a guy, a jag, just a guy. Never mind being in the spotlight, under the bright lights, But I want to see Ben Simmons show me something, And he's gotten every single chance. There's no better place than the Clippers. There's no reason why he can't. My man, Donovan Clingan is giving me 8 rebounds in not even 20 minutes. He giving me 8 rebounds and 1.6 blocks and 7-8 points in not even 20 minutes a game as a number 3 overall pick. Coming in out there with those UConn roots, with those Hurley roots. Not a star, but he's accepting that. So this year, he's going to be ready to do something for this Portland team. He's going to be ready. Okay? So it's a mentality. Ben Simmons, you're still, you can help the Clippers to, I'm not going to put them in the top 3, but you can help them to win ball games in a very competitive Western Conference. Go do it. CP3, he should stay in San Antonio. So CP3, and he's down there at Pete's Jam, which is a beautiful thing. His son is coming up through the ranks playing for Team CP3. So some of those clips we'll get to in Slice of Life. But you know what I mean? CP, I think it's better for him to be the mentor, to be the quote-unquote OG, to be the sensei, right? He sometimes has trouble taking orders. And if he comes to the Knicks, he's taking orders. Right? He's not mentoring Jalen Brunson. It's Jalen Brunson's team. Okay? So the Knicks, even though they did the foolishness, getting rid of Tibbs, Mike Brown's serviceable, knows his business, great. But the Knicks are about La Costa Nova. La Costa Nova. The Nova guys. And I still want Ragu back, even though Ragu's trying to win a championship with Minnesota. But it's about Bridges, Brunson, and Hart. That's the core. That's the foundation. And that was built up. Now we'll see. That's the foundation. Okay. That's going to be the interesting thing with the Knicks, who now and the other reason that frankly the Knicks don't need any of these players, Chris, because I'm talking about, they got Clarkson as well. So Westbrook, you're not starting. He's not starting. And we got Clarkson out off the bench. You got McBride, you got Kolek, you got Campaign still in the mix somewhere. You got Usebuli. The Knicks, Precious is in the mix. Mitch Robb is in the mix. So the Knicks are there's just too much talent overall. So those three guys are going to be looking for, if not starting, rotation minutes. And I don't see it with the Knicks. Solid point. Back to Caitlin Clark. When Pete Maravich came into the league, I remember Pete Maravich was averaging 44 points a game. Phenom. Could average 44 as a true freshman. Shout out to Pete Maravich. Shout out to the Marinovich Project. East Pan 30 for 30. The Marinovich Project. The Marinovich Project. Okay, talking about the Robo QB and talking about, so that's the, right? So Pete Maravich had that type of upbringing where it was just, he was a child prodigy, but he was not allowed to be a child and grow and develop as a child because of the obsessive focus on basketball. Check out the Marinovich Project. It's a similar story in terms of football. Right? And in terms of just youth sports, and you have a person is a person. And I told my buddy his son is a really good ball player coming up through the ranks. He balled out during the live period. I'm really happy, proud. He comes out and hoops with us in our men's league. He's doing wonderfully because he's talented, but he's accountable. He has an accountability. That's why he's having success. Whereas the young players, they get talented and then they just, I can do what I want to do and shine how I want to shine. You can't tell me nothing. And that's when the downfall starts. That's when the downfall starts. But I was talking to my cousin, and I said, he's not necessarily a sports nut. He's very successful and has a landscaping business, and he's doing very well for himself. He likes sports. He didn't really play. His brother, my cousin Ray, we played sports. Like, we were more sports guys. He didn't necessarily play sports. He was creative, very well liked, all that other stuff. He's doing very well with landscaping business, doing very well. Helping people in the community, giving people an opportunity. Salute. But we were talking, and I said, I said, look, man, like, this is just me. And first of all, like, you're the parent, you're the one that's going through it. Let's just make that clear. You're going through it. I just happen to know something, a little bit about sports, but let's make that clear. But I said, he's not a basketball player who happens to be your son. He's your son who happens to be a basketball player. That's what's going on here. He's not a basketball player who happens to be your son. He's your son who happens to play basketball. And I borrowed that perspective, that paradigm from Coach K. Shout out to Coach K. He says, I don't look at myself as a basketball coach, Coach K. I says, I look at myself as a leader who happens to coach basketball. I look at myself as a leader coming from the West Point tradition that happens to coach basketball. So that's how I delineate and distinguish. All right, so back to Todd Marinovich, the Marinovich Project, 30 for 30. Salute, check it out. And then Pete Maravich. Right, both of these prodigies were not allowed to develop as people because the sole focus was on their practice, their future profession, and their personhood their development as a person was stunted. Right, so those are cautionary tales. What does that have to do with Caitlin Clark? Caitlin Clark, when Pete Maravich came into the NBA as a prodigy, played for the Atlanta Hawks, the team was like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? He would do things, throw the ball behind the back. He would roll the ball to a player who was open, and the player just let the ball go out of bounds. No, you don't. You pass the ball, rookie. This is how we do things. A seminal failure of the NBA. Then, now, always. For Pete Maravich to be treated that way as the prodigy that he was, I don't care. 60s, 70s, civil rights movement, no. You're a veteran on a team that Pete Maravich comes into, you better get with the program and encourage this young man, or you can go. Okay? LeBron James got to Cleveland. They had Ricky, what was his name? Ricky, they had a scorer on those Cleveland teams. I'm going to have to get his name now because his name, it's bothering me. Ricky what? I'm not seeing it. Not DeJuan Wagner, the pride of Camden, whose son, Wani, is a baller. Oh, it's bothering me. So I'm going to have to go back. 2002. Ricky Davis. Yes, Ricky Davis. Was on a team, flashy, explosive, you know what I mean? High fly. LeBron comes in. Ricky Davis is like, you know what I mean? This is, my team. And Paul Silas was the coach. Paul Silas, this is LeBron James' team. It's LeBron James' team at 18. So Mr. Ricky Davis, Mr. High Flyer, dunk, okay, slow your roll. I know you're the older veteran player. We rolling out the carpet for the chosen one, the boy genius. And we're building around him. And should you want to stay in Cleveland, you need to encourage him. That's what I need from you. Go out. It's the first year. Obviously, LeBron is a willing passer. You're going to score your buckets. You're going to get your alley-oops. But in terms of this idea, this is my team. We're going to do things my way. You need to get in line with me. Because you have that little bit of seniority, that was shut down from the start. And I don't know if Ricky Davis returned, I don't think he finished the 04 season. Because he couldn't understand that. This was my issue with Marcus Smart when he was with the Celtics. Not that he was standing, but too much older brother for Marcus Smart when he was here with JB and JT. Okay? Not enough mentor, go ahead. Too much, right? Which Drew came in and having the ability to, because if Drew Holiday says something, you're going to listen, champion, Olympian, Hall of Famer. But Drew came in and said, okay, this is what we need to do. All right, I'm going to trust you to do it. Came in as a wise sensei that gave them space and, allowed them, stepped in when needed, but then just minded his own doggone business. That's what Drew did. That's what Drew does. Pete Maravich comes into the league, and it's just all this hateration. It's all this hateration around him. That not only led to losing basketball because you're fighting the changing of the tide, but it puts him in a situation where he can't express and flow and grow like he needs to. That's what it put Pete Maravich in a situation where you're not getting prime Maravich because the structure hasn't been put in place around him, i.e. Jerry West, when he took over as a special consultant for the Golden State Warriors, who had Monta Ellis, who wanted to do things his way. But they had this young man from Davidson that they was going to build around. And then a young man from Washington State by the name of Clay. And a young bull from North Carolina named Harrison. And a gamer from Michigan coming up under the Izzo tradition named Draymond. But it's supposed to be Monta Ellis' team. We're not doing that. Two choices. Okay, you get down with this young Chef Curry because we see something in him down the road. Okay, you help him out. Support. You put a smile on your face. You bring some good energy up into this building. Some positive energy, some how you doing energy. Or else you just keep quiet and let the good energy flow. Or you can hit the road. Jack. 2 options. What are we gonna do? So all the way back to Caitlin Clark, folks. I got concerns. Groin, that doesn't move me. Groin injury. Okay, you're hurt. It's a season. That doesn't mean you can't give me 10 minutes for the All-Star game. Never mind a 3-point contest. That doesn't mean you can't roll out there, run up and down, take a couple threes, give a couple high fives. So that people will come out and see it. It's a problem, folks. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. All right? Big. Never mind missing on all of these opportunities. I don't care in this instance about the culture war, the incessant, unending culture war that everyone wants to take and just stir. So Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, let's throw this right in, and spin it up, and get it out there with these hot takes, and this vitriol. They're having nothing to do with their ability, their innovations, their aspirations going forward to win a championship. None of that. All right? Just this one's from Iowa. This one's from the DMV. Okay? They had a moment. And so let's just project this to be what it frankly is not. Okay? So all that content farming can just operate as it does. That's fine. That's a part of the fact of life. You're not going to get rid of it. Fine. I'm talking about in-house now. W.N.B.A. in-house is what I'm talking about. And I'm continuing to talk about it. And I know it's W.N.B.A. I know we got to get other things. A couple other things. Pablo Torre with some groundbreaking reporting vis-a-vis gambling. So there's some other things. This is an unforced era. And I want to know, I'm interested to know why it's taking place. Right? I don't think the W.N.B.A. How do I want to put this? I know the W.N.B.A. understands how to incorporate new players, cultivate rising stars is what I'm getting at. The W.N.B.A. understands how to do this because it's in partnership with the NBA, which has mastered this. Going back to the late, great David Stern and this idea of it's about stars. We are going to market and build up our stars. See, watch interview with David Stearns, talks about our star players when he took over the NBA were at the bottom of the celebrity pyramid. Thought that was very well phrased. David Stern takes over. The league is too black, too violent, drugs, inconsistency, tape delay. It's not marketable. White America will never buy this. NBA stars were at the bottom of the celebrity pyramid. By the time David Stern was getting ready to pass the baton over to Adam Silver, they had the tippity top of the celebrity pyramid. Some of the most powerful brands on the planet. How'd that happen? By letting veteran, do nothing, go nowhere players antagonize Michael Jordan and zap his joy, his enthusiasm, his energy, his ascension up the ranks of the NBA ladder? Is that how it happened? By letting the haters anchor, down your rising stars? Is that how the NBA got to the top of the celebrity pyramid? What are we doing here, W.N.B.A.? Okay? Staying on this hill for a little while longer. Again, as I said, I get it, a groin, but no. Yes, I get it, the injury. It should be, well, who knows what it should be. Caitlin, like, this is good for you. And essentially, what I'm saying is, where's the Jerry Colangelo? Right? Players didn't want to play for Team USA. It was, it was an added burden, for little reward. You act like I have to do it versus I want to do it. Jerry Colangelo comes in and completely reinvents the program. Okay, why do you want to play for Team USA? Yes, you want to serve your country. You also want to do good for yourself. This is going to be a seminal opportunity for you to establish and build and grow your brand. You want to sell your shoes in India? You want to sell your shoes in China? You want to sell your shoes in Africa? You want to sell your shoes in Australia? How the heck do they know who you are? How can they resonate and connect with you? And you can give them a reason versus the other products that they have. Where is that window? The Olympics is where that window is. You want to get yourself in shape. You want to iron sharpens iron, i.e. James Harden. You need to play for Team USA. Spend some time with LeBron. Spend some time with Kobe. Spend some time with Jason Kidd. See how these guys conduct business. Spend some time with Mike Krzyzewski. Glean some of these habits. Okay? And you want to do this for, yes, your country. Whether you're from Akron, whether you're from Philly, whether you're from the Chi, okay, Atlanta, right? You're winning a gold. Yes, and I know the nation has a checkered history. Okay, still growing, still in progress. Always going to be that way. But to bring this gold medal home to your people and your community, like no other. And just you as a competitor. You want to be the best in the world. We think we're the best in the world coming from these playgrounds and these we got to prove it. The world's gotten better. All these things Jerry Colangelo incorporated in terms of Team USA to the point where now they're turning people away. They're turning people away. Whereas once they couldn't find folks. This is what the W.N.B.A. is lacking. When I see a signature game and your signature player, who everybody knows is the marquee, folks, I got to use another name on this. The late, great Roberto Clemente. Yes, I said it. I want to be great for myself, and I want to be great for my people. They need me to go into that all-star game. This is what the people back home in South America are going to be watching. I'm banged up. I got a sprained wrist. I got a bum ankle. I'm playing in the all-star game. And donating the proceeds to charity. Late, great Roberto Clemente. I don't see that far of a difference. W.N.B.A. Upstart League. CBA negotiations. Where's the money for this deal coming from? It's good for everybody. So this right? We got the league has to correct the culture. It's got to correct the messaging. It's got to correct the culture. Right? I get it. Competition, so on and forth, yada, yada, yada. And yes, this long diatribe. Yes, there's going to be Aja Wilson will be at the game. And Breonna Stewart's going to. There's a lot of great stars that are going to be at the game. That's not what this is about. This is not one versus the other. Magic Johnson was at those All-Star games and Isaiah Thomas, but people came to see Air Jordan. Yes, Magic, and yes, James Worthy, and Reggie Theus, and Adrian. There's a lot of great players. It was a great All-Star game. Okay, that's great. But that doesn't have to be the adversary of the bellwether. Michael Jordan flying through the air in that dunk contest. That's what went on posters and Hooper's walls for generations to come. We're going to miss that because of a groin injury. It's not that she's going to fly, but she could be there. She could play. In Caitlin Clark's instance, just imagine her taking a hash mark 3 in the game. Just come up, whoa, take that hash mark 3 and bottom it. Done. We're good. No look pass over here. 10 minutes. Start the game, play it, and you don't even have to come back. Come 3-4 minutes. Done. Shut it down. We're good. Seeing this, Caitlin Clark was just in Beantown, man. Packed the place. Garden was just packed. What are we doing? Packed house at the Garden. What? Boston Globe reporting. Governor Healy talking about bringing a W.N.B.A team to Beantown. I'm looking for a reversal. She was just hooping the other day. It's the 18th. She was just hooping the other day. Now we see she's pulls out of the All-Star game 11 hours ago. No. From the league standpoint, from CC standpoint, y'all got to get this. Y'all got to get this straightened out. Ain't gonna work like this. Okay, rising tide to lift all boats. The tide goes out. Hey, NBA missed that tide when the mid-'80s came through. Maybe we still be back in tape delay. Who knows? Had to speak on that. Noted it. Shout out to Pablo Torre. Pablo finds out some groundbreaking stuff that's moving the needle in terms of sports gambling. Dive into that more depth going forward. Appreciate folks that stopped by. We're about to get this slice of life going on. And keeps it pushing. Gonna get slice of life rocking and rolling and keep it pushing. Hope you're doing well. All right, let's start off with talk about the process, talk about the journey. Let's get that up on the screen. What they say? Sometimes they say GP, meaning God's people. Respect. This is GP Gary Payton talking about the process.
Dudes don't have fathers. Yep. The 21-year-olds and the 22-year-olds, y'all gotta understand their mamas and daddies, they number 37, 38. They hanging out with them in the clubs and smoking weed with them here. Right. So that's not a structure. Their grandmama is 45, 47, 48. So that's a big difference of what we're talking about, of how we grow up. Right. We grow up a little different, man. They don't have that structure like that. Right. And mama's only like 17 years older than them.
They're into it.
See, my daddy and mama is like 30 to almost 40 years older than me.
Right.
If they were still living right now. Feel me? My mom and daddy would have been in the 90s. Right. Yeah. You feel me? So it's a little different. And then they grew up in the 20s and the 30s, where we couldn't go and use the bathroom. Blacks couldn't use the water. They couldn't do all of that. They grew up around that stuff. So they taught it us. You remember? If we go in the store and we start acting stupid, what our mama gonna do?
Oh, man.
And we look at them and we afraid. Right. And then they'll go outside and beat us in the car. You feel what I'm saying? Well, we don't have that nowadays, and that's just what we have to understand and realize. That's why every time you say something to them, they always got something to say back to you,
right?
Or they sensitive.
Right.
You feel me? They real sensitive.
Yeah, they
so
is.
you trying to tell them, man, I ain't trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you to when you grow up. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna have to do this too, as a father or mother.
And what GP is saying is so real, because that sensitive shit is not supposed to. I'm sure we had kids with special needs and that was sensitive, all that. That shit didn't mean nothing when you grew up in our household. You're going to get treated like everybody else, because the world ain't going to look out for you like that.
They be acting like you ain't even supposed to call nobody sensitive today.
Yeah, that's crazy.
For the world.
That's what they act like. And then they think that, and then the mamas be coming at you. Hold on.
Yeah.
You don't even know what your son or your daughter doing. Don't come at me with that. That's why I have meetings before my season start with all the parents.
Right.
I said, I didn't teach you how to raise, so don't teach me how to coach.
Man.
Tell me how to coach.
Right.
So don't come over here, so if your son coming here, please, man, just sit yourself in the stands and be cool.
Right.
Because once you say something to me, I'm gonna tell your son to get all the stuff out the locker, and he's gonna go home with you, and that's where he's gonna stay with you. Because I'm not doing that.
Do you sit in the stands and be cool?
All the time. I don't say nothing to nobody, coach. I don't say nothing to nobody, coach. If that's what you want to do, and that's what you want to do, as long as you don't put your hands on it, I'm cool with it. But if you want to, you can talk to him the way you want to. He got to be strong enough to come back and get angry. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
Make that coach get off you. Go out there and play.
Right.
Be that dog. Be that one that nobody say nothing to, because that's what I did. But some of these dudes don't have fathers. The 21-year-olds and the 22-year-olds, y'all gotta understand their mamas and daddies, they number 37, 38. They hanging out with them in the clubs and smoking weed with them here.
So Gary Payton, he said a lot about a lot of different things, a lot of different angles there. But what resonates with me, and it's a lot to kind of touch on, is his dad. I remember Gary Payton drafted early 90s. So, when he's in his prime, really the early 90s was the Sonics' prime. By the time the Bulls, Michael Jordan got back, their window was closed. It was unfortunate. But, his dad used to call him Mr. Mean at Oakland. Dad was a coach. He went to Oregon State, of all schools. He's coming from the, again, Pacific Northwest, where Damon's heading back to, but was just, number 2 overall pick in the draft, and was just called them, they're just nice. Glove, Hall of Famer, that whole thing. But, how he's talking about how he was raised up, and that's an interesting point that he made about the age gap with his parents and them coming from really that greatest generation era. That certainly the foundation for the tremendous success that he had over many years in the NBA. So touched on a lot of different points, but the glove and then his dad, Mr. Mean, I do remember. Again, speaking of the process and the journey, and just the gratitude and how that fuels you. This is going back some years. A young cat. Young cat.
But I'll never forget the day when you told me that you was gonna take all your savings and you was gonna put a granite court in the backyard for me. And we didn't have enough money for a real hoop, but you made sure that you built one from hand so I could practice. And I can't thank you enough for that. And this is the reason, you're one of the biggest reasons why I'm holding this trophy and this hardware right now. So I can't thank you enough. I'll never forget.
Yes, sir. Carl Anthony Towns, Don Bosco. Out of Don Bosco in New Jersey. You know, again, just speaking to the journey, you know, and those folks that, you know, particularly his dad, put him on the path. Put him on the path to be the #1 overall pick. Stay in the NBA, going to shift gears. The youth circuit.
Say 90-something% of the coaches don't know what they're doing. Right? It's like we've played this game and was coached by some of the best. So we've been battle tested when it comes to that.
I think it's less about teaching and more about winning. You know what I mean? They want to win. And at the end of the day, it's kind of obviously you want to win, but that's why I got in this space. Like I've been teaching since I've been in this space, like teaching, how do you play in space? How do you play without the ball in your hands? And I feel like that's a deeper conversation. You've seen all these over the water kids come in knowing how to play basketball as a team. I think we're so locked in on putting your head down and how many times you can cross someone over that we forget the real aspects of the game, cutting, the screening, the flaring, the slipping, pick and roll. Like, so it's just like, I've been teaching kids in this space, and I agree. Probably about 90% of these motherfuckers don't know what they're doing.
Shit, man.
And then the parents on top of it are crazy. You couldn't tell no parent in the gym or their child that they're not going to the league. Like everyone in that, I'm there. Okay.
A lot of these coaches, and you know, some of them are fathers just wanting to stay close to their kids or whatever it is, moms, whatever, want to close to their kids. And I understand that. But the expectations of the parent is delusional to me. Right? Like you're not even working out during the week. You may practice once or twice during the week. And then when the weekend comes, you're going to let your son, daughter shoot or dribble in a game like this when during the week they didn't even practice that. That to me is mind-boggling. I have no clue on how do you become successful in those like that. Right? I would say 90-something% of the coaches don't know what they're doing. Right? It's like we've
talking about grassroots basketball, the perspective of, you know, NBA guy, refereeing, kind of being attuned and locked in and following it. I wouldn't put it at that astronomical number. You know, I wouldn't go that high. And I don't, you know, but there is a Wild West component. I think that's, you know, you have 90. There is, when we talk about that percentage, frankly, 90%, and still it's not that high, but over 50% of 50 is a high number. I just don't understand the process. And I think that's what he was more getting at, rather than like this coach or this player, you know, it's the Wild West. So, and I mentioned the book At All Costs. Check it out. The documentary, which you can get on YouTube, Netflix. Documentaries At All Costs. The book is Playing Their Hearts Out. Documentary is At All Costs. It kind of looks at it. A lot of folks, you guys, you experience it. But what I'm saying is, are there people, you know, maybe I would be one of these, that I've seen it over some years, or a coach that's going through it that has seen it, that can give the particular player and the particular family a realistic understanding of the journey. I would say at least 50% of, we'll just talk basketball, half that are trying to do something at the college level, right? Because sometimes, like, they like basketball, they do it for fun. Great. Go to all these tournaments, and I just enjoy playing. If I get a scholarship, fine. If I don't, that's fine. Right? I'm gonna be a mathlete before I'll be an athlete. All right. And see, that's a perspective. Those modified expectations that you can enjoy the experience. You'll play on a team, you'll get minutes. You might not win. Okay, fine, great. I want to play rather than being, and again, this is about the understanding versus being on an elite team and being a reserve player, 8th, 9th man, which is the case many times. Everybody wants to play on these quote unquote elite teams, but they only have 12 spots. And on these elite teams, they actually do have 3, 4, 5 Division I players. So if you're a Division III player, which is nothing wrong with that, Duncan Robinson, others, and you're playing on this elite team with 5 Division I players, then how much are you going to actually play? Right? And versus, you wear the jersey, your IG is bubbling, the coach might sell you on the dream because you're on the team. Hopefully you don't buy it, but that stuff goes on. And so the expectation is I'm on the team with Division I players, therefore I am a Division I player, which you're not. Nothing wrong with it, but you're not. So I think over 50 haven't had that ability to check in with somebody who can help them from a place of honesty rather than a place of profit. And if that's not the case, right, if it's not the 50% that want to know but don't necessarily have an advocate, then the number might go up to 60 to 70, maybe to 80 of people who just don't want to know. Right? I have a dream. I'm on my journey. You can't tell me nothing. It's going to work out. And so that's just the way it's going to be. Okay? There was a good basketball player at St. John's that, this is where I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in the draft. I'm not, and went and didn't get drafted. And now they can't go back to college. Whereas they could have got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to head back to college in the transfer portal. Didn't want to do that. Didn't want to stay at St. John's. Going to go to the league. Went to the league. Didn't get drafted. All right. So now, you're still young. Your career's not over, but you put yourself behind the 8 ball. All right. Staying with the preps. Let's talk a little bit about, this world that we're living in. Coach Cal certainly knows the business front and back.
First 4 times. Is he going to graduate from that school? There's no way. You can't graduate. So now you're going to be done playing without a college degree. You have no ties to the last school you went to where they feel that you're from Arkansas, you played here, we're here, you're going to have opportunity. That's done. You're offered $55,000 in your first job, and you go, what? $55,000? Do I have to show up? Are they going to, you got me an apartment, right? Or a car. I mean, I'm worried about mental health. Mental health. Look, I've been poor. And you know what's worse than being poor? Coming across some money and then being poor. If a kid transfers 4 times, is he going to graduate from that school? There's no way. You can't graduate. So now you're going to be done playing without a college degree. You have no ties to the last school you went to where they feel that
no
you're
networking.
From Arkansas, you played here, we're here, you're going to have opportunity. That's done. You're offered $55,000 in your first job, and you go, what? $55,000? Do I have to show up? Are they gonna, you got me an apartment, right? Or a car? I mean, I'm worried about mental health. Mental health. That, look, I've been poor. And you know what's worse than being poor? Coming across some money and then being poor. If a kid transferred.
So Cal, who knows both sides of the spectrum, right? Knows both sides of it. More monies, billions of dollars in NBA contracts, right? This is, you know, the Oklahoma City boy, SGA. That's Cal. Yeah. That Catman do. That Catman scoop after 50 million. That's Cal. Yeah, that Maxi, that young bull, that's Cal. Wani coming up through the ranks, the next one that knocked off my Johnnies. So he knows. You see the All-Star game, the Anthony Davis, so on, and they show love to Cal. So is he the best strategist down the court? Maybe, maybe not, whatever. But, you know, those guys swear by him. And then the guys that weren't even high lottery, you know, top 5, the Tyler Heroes, Jamal Murray's, the list goes on and on. So how he does things, it flat out works. It works. His guys, they get through, they get into the league, they shine. Okay, but there's plenty or more, I think is what he's saying, more and more now, guys, that, you know, you don't stay with that one coach. You don't stay with Cal for a year or 2 or 3 to develop that connection. You know, it's just you're a high on a high seas, which is 100% right. You're going to do it your way, and you give a 19-year-old on a college campus $1 million. What do you think is going to happen? I think he's going to go over to the business school, talk to a business professor about how we can, I hope some of them are doing. Just saw the kid Beck from Georgia is making $6 million at Miami. Tip my hat to him. That young Arch, Heisman Trophy, #1 overall pick at Texas, 5 and 6 millions. Right? You hope with Arch, he's seen it, he knows it. That money goes straight in the bank, straight into the investments. I'm sure that Mr. Beck and Mr. Manning in Miami and Texas can live quite comfortably in those environments without burning through their millions of dollars. I'm sure they can do that. And at least in the case of Arch, you know, he has a support system. But no support system, no perspective. You get rich quick and back to being broke. This story, there's no I wasn't privy to this. I knew that Portnoy was doing well, and but just seeing the specifics, didn't realize he sold Barstool for that high of a figure, $500 million. I knew he sold it and came back. Four-page newspaper in 2020. Sells Barstool. I knew that. To Penn. Did a lot of gambling stuff. I thought he was still involved. His pizza review. Sometimes that goes sideways. They buy in for some hundreds of millions. It goes sideways with Penn. So this is intriguing. ESPN wants to come in and bankroll Penn for ESPN Bet. They got to dump Barstool. Portnoy stays locked in. All right, I'll take the company back now. And he buys it back for nothing. They write it off as a loss. If he sells it again, they're going to get the profit. I imagine he'll keep it. He keeps the company. Okay. So just that, all those twists and turns in and of themselves, you can take from it what you will. The connecting point, the relevancy point, is that this shakeup at Fox Sports, tidal wave of folks going out and then new people coming in. There's rumblings about a deal with Barstool, and that Fox, wants to go into business with Barstool. Maybe not that different than ESPN going into business with Pat McAfee. Had his show, had his brand, had his people, and so could be seeing more of Portnoy. Clearly Barstool still does what it does and is relevant and is impactful, but he could be now a headlining figure at a major network with his own platform in that capacity, as well as, multi, $500 million. So to be continued. But we'll see quite a bit more. All right, a few more before we get up and out of here in terms of twists and turns.
Boston Celtics hired a world-famous chess prodigy with no basketball experience as a coach. The man in question is Josh Waitzkin. You might know him as the subject of the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer. Waitzkin won 8 junior national chess championships as a kid, and when he was 11 years old, he played to a draw against the world champion. The movie came out when he was 16, and it made him way more famous than he already was. But the next part of the story is even crazier. After high school, he went to Europe and started doing something called Tai Chi push-ins. It's one-on-one, and you're basically trying to get your opponent off balance. Long story short, he won the 2004 push-hands world title. So here's a guy who's among the best in the world at 2 things, which is almost truly unbelievable. But the conclusion isn't that he was born this chess Tai Chi master, it's that he's an elite learner. And that's where the Celtics come in. In 2023, Waitzkin was brought in to talk to the coaching staff about performance psychology. It was supposed to be a one-off speaking gig, but he and Coach Joe Mazzulla really hit it off. Here was a guy in Missoula who tried to convince his wife to live in an RV in the parking lot of Fairmont State so he could be next to the gym when he coached them. There's a degree of craziness that Waitzkin connected with. They began to text before and after games, and then in May, the Celtics lost to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. And here's where it gets interesting. Waitzkin thought Missoula needed to be torn down in order to be built up stronger. So he took him on a week-long trip to the Costa Rican jungle to crush him. I don't know everything that they did, but Missoula described it by saying, "I'd never done what the hell we did down there." It did include getting tossed around the Pacific Ocean and hiking a mountain barefoot, the point being physical torment to expose mental weakness. So fast forward a year, the Celtics are NBA champions, Missoula's a beloved Boston sports figure, and Jeff Van Gundy, a Celtics consultant, leaves for another job. Despite Waitzkin having no basketball experience, Missoula asks Brad Stevens to hire him, and Stevens says yes. It's another wrinkle in the fascinating story of Joe Mazzulla, and only time will tell if it leads to another Celtics championship. Here's why the Boston...
All right, so that's absolutely wild. I did not realize he took over for my main man, Jeff Van Gundy, but I'm not opposed to it. But at the same time, he needs to tell Joe to stop shooting all the doggone threes. Stop shooting all those doggone threes. The individual for whom Searching for Bobby Fischer, which is one of my 90s go-to films, that's pretty cool. Okay, a couple more, as in one or two. Let's talk C-Web, Sacktown.
was Chris Webber. Is he a player who gets overlooked sometimes?
Yes, he gets overlooked. We talk about power forward because of Timmy, because of, I think, Karl Malone, KG. You forget about Chris. I met Chris when he was a sophomore in high school, and we were hoping in the summer league. I was like, man, who is this dude? It's rare that you get a team where you do everything together. We kick it. Chris was a big part of it because Chris was a superstar. But he wasn't the egomaniac superstar. He was inclusive. And playing with him, I thought that was the year. Mike Bibby, Bobby Jackson, Doug Christie, Peja. I was like, we go. It made me enjoy really playing basketball.
Which team would you say that was your best chance or a moment that you not necessarily regret, but a moment that you think, damn, we let one get away? Sacramento.
To get to a final, I thought that was the best chance.
How talented was Chris
Podcast P? Webber was a problem. The Sacktown, 03. There's some shady things that went on for sure. Some calls that were made to get that Lakers-Nets finals. Leave it at that. But 03 Sacramento Kings, solid. All right, we're going to conclude on the prep circuit. Chris has talked about this young man, Jason Crow, who's balling right now in Pete's Jam for the Oakland Soldiers out there in the West. They went up against Expressions Elite, Nike's flagship program here in the Commonwealth based out of Boston. Expressions put it on them. That's Mr. Crow. And these young guys are battling. It's Tyne and Stokes. Down goes Crow. Away goes Expressions. This is the jam, folks. These guys are battling right now. Every possession, they're battling. Stokes, number one. Number 5 player. Soldiers are having some trouble. It's a big win. That's what happens at Pete's Jam. Stars of tomorrow. So that's Tynan. You saw him. You're going to be hearing about him. Rising senior. Mr. Crow, been hearing about him out west. But hey, Oakland Soldiers broke through and made it all the way to the finals last year. Lost to the Bruiser Brothers. They wanted to get that Pete's Jam championship. This is the year to do it, but they got certainly got a little bit of a ways to go. I think that kind of ties in to what we've been talking about. Okay. Whether the elite players, top ranked, top of your class, or the Rudy Rudigers of the world, you got to trust but verify. And these high leverage moments, that's when you earn the stripes. Not at the tournament, over here, one good tournament, and so your ranking goes from, middle of the pack to top of the. Okay, so now you got the high ranking, and hey, heavy weighs the crown. Heavy weighs the crown, folks. Another episode, SandCity. Thank you so much.